All right, cool. Hello and welcome back to Podfinder and Wisdom Check. My name is Philip, and today I am sitting down again with my friend Jake, and we are going to be talking about cults and specifically cults as they exist in Pathfinder in the world of Galarian. Jake, on the off chance that there's somebody watching this on my channel who doesn't know who you are, introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I mostly do videos on up and coming and new releases that are books that are coming out or have already come out and break down different things and how you could use them. I try to bring you things that I'm excited about and put my own bent on it and how you can maximize it for story purposes. I'm all about story. And so any character builds that you see on my channel have huge backstory. It's like half the video. And that's why I play this game for the story. And as far as cults go, I've been in a cult. It was a super small one, but technically it was one. And that sort of spurred on my curiosity about how cults work. And what once that cult ended, I'm like, wait, was that actually a cult? Like, I didn't realize it at the time. So I've personally done a lot of exploring on cults, and I've also been in a lot of neo-pagan, new age Wiccan organizations that technically are cults, not the pejorative sense of cults, but we'll get there. So they are the religions that I've been a part of have not negative cultish behavior, but they're
Hmm.
technically cults in the scholarly way. And
Hmm.
we'll talk about that in more definition in a moment.
Yeah. There's definitely definitions of the word cult that we're going to need to work around. I'm very much coming at it from the Pathfinder lore perspective. All of my expertise is in the lore. My knowledge of IRL cults is what I've absorbed from podcasts. So definitely not anything as direct or academic. But yeah, let's go ahead and dig in. This little cover image I got is probably my one of my favorite depictions of religion in Pathfinder. This is actually a cult of worshippers of Grotus, the god of the end times. So
Oh, the
Grotus,
skull and the moon.
yep, exactly. So the skull in the moon that hangs over Pharasma's boneyard, that is the herald of the herald of the apocalypse. So these are those dudes worshiping a god who does not care, who says in his lore that he does not care. So they are definitely having a time. But let's go ahead and dig in. And I figure the first place we should start is kind of with that definition that you and I were kind of dancing around already. So what is a cult in Pathfinder? And the image I chose here is the first cultist I ever fought in Pathfinder. This is an Urgathoa cultist. The art is from the let's see, it's the Curse of the Crimson Throne Anniversary Edition. So very minor spoiler alert, you do fight cultists of Urgathoa in that AP. But I remember this art just because the first time we fought him, I was like, this guy is going to be fun to kill, and he was.
He's pretty. I like his skirt.
Yeah, I know. He's got a really cool outfit. It's like it's a really nice mix of like classic cultist robe in the context of D&D, like classic cultist robe plus armor. What you don't see is that he's got this like big scythe. There's like two versions of the art, the one where he's got this giant scythe over it, but I couldn't get a clean edit of that one. But yeah, so Pathfinder uses there's a couple different definitions of cult in Pathfinder. Obviously, Pathfinder is based on D&D, and in D&D they had a very specific, like in old school D&D, they had a very specific thing that they were going for with cultists. You had cultists of Tiamat or cultists of XYZ evil deity. And these are really kind of blending two definitions of the word cult. The first definition is what I'm showing here, kind of the polytheistic, what I kind of refer to as like the Greek definition of cult. And the only reason I call it that is because that's the context where I first heard it. In polytheistic religions, the term cult kind of roughly defines like practices related to the worship of a very specific deity, and then there are secrets associated with those beliefs. This, in the Pathfinder universe, then subdivides into whether you're worshiping a specific good deity that is generally accepted, even if they're kind of obscure, or a specific bad deity, one who's not really accepted by the broader population. And then you have like these higher levels of secrecy that you need to go through, even beyond the usual, like you have to be a member. It's like, no, now we need to hide ourselves because we're going to get wiped out. And then you have like the non-religious cults, so or like the pseudo-religious cults. These are more closely aligned with like the pop culture definition of cult that we use today. They're not 100% because obviously like magic exists, so like you can like in the way where you could cast fireballs regardless of your real world religion. The magic of Pathfinder is a little more direct. And a cult in Pathfinder, even if they're not strictly religious, might be something like the Whispering, where it's like, oh no, you offer tangible power. But there's still that like cult of personality that really kind of cultivates in a lot of these organizations. But like, this is something where I know you have a little bit more to say than I do, just from the
Yes, I
research you've been
do.
doing.
Okay, so first off, the non-religious, the cult doesn't have to be about a deity. That would be based on religion, but it can be based on philosophy, and therefore it's not religious, but it's still a cult. It's an
Hmm.
organization based on a belief system.
Hmm. We're
So
definitely going to get to
something
one of
that
those.
cool. I don't know who it is yet, but I'm curious. All right, so all of the modern day cults that we've seen so many videos on and so many specials, documentaries on Netflix or whatever, YouTube, are almost all the pejorative use of the word cult. They are harmful people who injure or kill people. They do nasty, messed up, illegal things. That is not the scholarly original meaning of the word cult. So the modern pejorative use of cult in that way really started taking its own life or taking life, well, gaining speed in the 60s when a bunch of new cults came out, and there have been dozens of them since. So those are probably what you've heard of most as cults, but the word cult is derived from the Latin term cultus, which means worship. An older sense of the word cult indicates a set of religious devotional practices that is conventional within its culture, is related to a particular figure, and is frequently associated with a particular place or generally the collective participation in rites of religion. I'm getting this from Wikipedia. Also, from the Encyclopedia Britannica, a cult is usually a small group devoted to a person, idea, or philosophy. One of the original one of these okay not one of the most commonly used scholarly version of the term cult means a subdivision of a religion,
Hmm.
period. So it means anytime there was an offshoot of one main trunk of a religion, and then like it shot off into like a different branch of Christianity.
Hmm.
Technically, in the scholarly terms of that, just being objective, those are called cults.
Hmm. No, it
So
makes
what we're
sense.
talking about is not negative at all. It's just how a religion that is not the main uh, religion of a nation is
Hmm.
termed.
Yeah, so like in like ancient Greece or Rome, I forget which, I think Dionysus was Greek. Like you would have a cult of Dionysus. That would be kind of it would be like a hyper-focused splinter group, not necessarily fully separated, but like a splinter in the sense that it has a deeper focus on Dionysus himself and the mysteries of Dionysus. Am I kind of interpreting that correctly?
Yeah, and there was
Yeah.
a cult of Isis in Rome, and the Eleusinian mysteries were all about getting closer to Isis,
Hmm.
and that because it was Roman was not originally um, Egyptian. It was a cult from the original branch of Isis religion, which was Egyptian.
Hmm.
So the Roman cult of Isis was called a cult because it wasn't the original worship system.
Hmm. No, yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I think one thing we're going to find as we go through this is Pathfinder, and I mean, because of the legacy of Dungeons and Dragons, is going to be playing kind of fast and loose with what constitutes a cult and what constitutes a cultist. Because I mean, we've all played TTRPGs for a while. Cultists are just a thing you fight. They're the guys in the robes doing the weird magic, like
Yeah, they're just a classification of dude.
yeah, exactly. It's like, okay, I got my Hell Knights, I got my cultists. Sometimes those are the same thing depending on the order. But like, it's just a type of dude you fight. So like I think there's definitely fruitful ground for conversation here and like kind of how Pathfinder has gone about kind of differentiating different cults and religious organizations and all these different groups that you can encounter that are going to be broadly defined when you fight them as cultist.
Yeah. And I think that what I like using as terms to differentiate them is simply cult. And that's going to be our baseline scholarly use of the word cult.
Mhm.
And then if it's more of like the Heaven's Gate, some messed up kind of religious cult, then it's going to be called a destructive cult.
Yeah, I think that's fair. So catch me on that if I slip out of that parlance. So, all right, so let's start with the freaky deaky right away. Uh, we are starting with the cult of Lamashtu, the
You
mother
can't
of
get more freaky.
monsters. I know, like it, there are very few deities outside of maybe the elder gods and like the outer gods who are more freaky than Lamashtu. So, who is Lamashtu? Uh, Jake, do you know? Are you familiar with Lamashtu?
Not really. I
Not
mean, I
really.
just know that it reminds me of Loki giving birth to monsters.
I mean, you honestly, you're not that far off. So Lamashtu is the mother of monsters. That is her moniker. She's got a few other names, but she's the demon queen. So she was a deity who essentially carved or clawed her way to power by kind of killing and absorbing the power of some other gods, notably the mentor of Desna. And her whole thing is uh, like embracing of the monstrous, be that monstrous people, monstrous ideas, or monstrous tendencies in yourself. And this can be like monstrous personality traits like rage and anger and things like that, or like voracious hunger, things like that. Or it can also be quite literally like the monstrous, meaning, the ability to transform into an animal or, sharp teeth, fangs, claws, grafting tentacles onto your body or breeding creatures that are horrific and dangerous and powerful. Her whole deal is anything that is abnormal and therefore dangerous in the eyes of society is her purview. And it is the job of those who follow her to basically tear down organized society so that the monstrous things of the world can reign. It basically like, you are my children. You must carve out a world for yourselves because the world sees you as monstrous. Now, that's kind of how she and her ilk see it. The caveat to that is, by the way you do that is by killing everybody you don't like. So there's there's definitely matters of perspective on all of this. The cult of Lamashtu is pretty small. Unsurprisingly, it is actively hunted pretty much throughout all of Galarian because its areas of interest are extremely destructive to most societies. Unless you're strong enough to resist them, they are going to breed monstrous creatures that will destroy you. And that might be something like, like you would expect from like dog breeding, but it also might be, like cultivating a monstrous being inside of your own body. If you're, a person with a uterus, that's, you're literally going to birth them. However, if you don't have that, you are encouraged to like intake parasites into your body and help them to grow. It's quite
Like when
disgusting.
Rasputin died in Hellboy. Do you remember that?
Yes, actually, I do remember that. Yes. Uh, but wow. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. Thank you for
You've
that
killed
reminder.
me,
I
a
need to go
simple
watch that now.
man, but you've given birth to a god.
Exactly. Yes. He would have been a perfect Lamashtan in that regard. I don't remember the rest of his characterization. And then their other goal is obviously destroying ordered society. So you can clearly see the tension and why they have to live in secrecy, essentially. The thing that's particularly interesting about the cult of Lamashtu is they have a very specific appeal to anyone who is an outsider or an outcast. If you are, for whatever reason, not accepted in the community you live in, the cult of Lamashtu, they will take you in. They will accept you for who you are, and they will encourage you to be your truest self, with the caveat that that truest self should be following the ideals of Lamashtu. Like, pretty famously, there's a key NPC in a very well received Pathfinder adventure path who falls to the worship of Lamashtu because the people she lives with ostracize her. She's a Nephilim, and they think of her as not a demon, but like a holy being. They see her as a holy woman, and this isolates her from her people, so that when tragedy strikes, she's like, I need someone who accepts me. And of course, the mother of monsters is right there. Um, so that's kind of how they can appeal to people who aren't necessarily just like, wicked, aren't necessarily just evil. That's kind of that draw in tactic of like, you can be who you want to be. You can be your truest self. We're not going to cast you out just because you're different. The trick then is where they turn it, where they say, okay, not only are we not casting you out, we should be attacking those who did cast you out. And that's kind of where they do that twist.
I
But
want to point out that that's how destructive cults in modern day gather people at first. They're like,
mhm.
here's an after school club you could join. Everybody's welcome, but you worship a demon.
And see, that's where I wanted to start with Lamashtu, because I was like, this sure feels like something that could have cropped up in like, South Central California in the 70s really easily. Like,
Totally.
granted, there's a lot of magic involved, but aside from that, yeah. And then like the thing like with Lamashtu, there's a lot of things you could do with her. Like we can go into or out of depth with these, but like pretty popular storyline for Lamashtu character or for Lamashtu villains is like they're going to raid a settlement out on the frontier because these people can't defend themselves if the Lamashtans, breed a powerful enough monster. Um, if you are trying to release a monster that's been locked away somewhere, like you got to develop the ritual to do that. And then that kind of storyline I highlighted earlier of like, if there's an ostracized person, like it's really easy for the cult of Lamashtu to hold some appeal here. So this is kind of like the first one I think of when I think of cults in the Pathfinder setting, especially as they relate to the major deities. There's one other one, but we'll get to that on the next slide.
Something that I wanted to mention is that each of these cults are going to have different rituals that are private and public.
Hmm.
And I think that, and you and I talked about that beforehand, but I'm just
Hmm.
presenting that for the group. So I think that something that, all right, have you seen Fight Club?
I have. I love Fight
Okay.
Club.
So Fight Club of fighting each other builds bonds.
Hmm.
Something similar happens in some cults. Like I think it's called not synonym,
Oh, Synanon.
Synanon. Thank you. I
Yeah.
misspelled
Hmm.
it. In Synanon, they had a Synanon game at the beginning of when they formed just a group, a club, basically, before they became anything close to cultish. It was a game. They called it that so that there was a time set aside that they could do this thing. So what would happen is that everybody would get together and be as honest and verbally explosive and as angry and upset as they wanted to be. And then if they did any of that outside of that time, everyone reprimanded them for it. So it was only this time during this game, the Synanon game is what they called it, that they could like give each other positive or negative feedback, that they could be as uh, open and um, say whatever they wanted to, even if it hurt somebody. And that built really strong bonds. I could see something similar to that happening here
Hmm.
with like fist fights. And that kind of thing can bring someone to a state of an altered mental state,
Hmm.
which is the point of a lot of cults or religions or spirituality
Hmm.
to reach a different frame of mind and so build bonds with everyone. Usually it's to get personal reform or change or reach a higher level to be able to cast spells or whatever, like in our reality. But in this case, it would be used for binding the group together. So I could see these people in the Lamashtu cult getting together and fighting each other until they're bloody and beaten, exhausted to build bonds. And that would be their internal ritual.
Hmm.
And maybe external ritual, they would have like a wrestling ring or some like martial arts expose or
Hmm.
something.
Yeah, I could definitely see something like that or similar to that, kind of building off of that idea. Interestingly, we do have a few details on kind of like festivals that they do. But I don't remember them off the top of my head. They're
No,
in
I
the lot.
remember that now. I
Yeah,
forgot.
they're in the travel guide. We do get kind of an inkling of that. What the other thing I could see them doing is like really like indulging in these like bestial like especially for people who they're appealing to because they appear somewhat animalistic or something like that. Um, engaging in some kind of like bestial consumption or like the consumption of like a hunted animal or something like that to really, draw people in. Like meals are a natural time of like community and like, but if you twist it slightly and embrace kind of that like societal taboo of like eating in a monstrous way or something like that, you could really easily draw in those or build up those communal bonds within this really tight-knit group very easily. But
Yeah,
I
like if
think
they
I
were
think
attacking
all
an
of that
elf
could
or
work.
something.
Exactly. Yep. I think all of that stuff could potentially work. And it'd be
Mhm.
really easy to write that into some of this stuff. All right. So that was Lamashtu. Jake pointed out, I didn't clarify. This lady is not Lamashtu. This is a Lamashtan cultist. No, Lamashtu is much more animalistic. So you can Google her. Actually her name is from an ancient Sumerian goddess, I think. It's like Tiamat and Pazuzu and all that stuff. It comes from some actual real world ancient religions. So kind of cool. But moving on to a god whose picture I actually did include. Uh, Next up was Urgathoa, the Pallid Princess. That is her over on the right hand side, and a cultist of her in the left image.
Got some sexy leg bones on her. Oh.
Yeah, she's definitely again, they really cook with the evil deity artwork and especially the evil lady deities. They do a really good job of making them look very freaky. So
Uh,
Urgathoa, Pallid
Lamashtu is
Princess.
Mesopotamian and Sumerian.
Thank you. Yeah, thank you. I knew I was missing the Mesopotamia part. Urgathoa is not Mesopotamian. She is a Pathfinder original. So, who is the Pallid Princess? So, Urgathoa is the patron deity of undeath. There are a lot of deities devoted to undeath in the setting, for sure. There are many like demon lords of necromancy, vampires, ghouls. There's another one we'll be talking about later, Nhimbaloth. But Urgathoa is the deity of undeath. If there was one deity who had complete command over undeath, it is Urgathoa. All the other ones are more niche. And the big thing about her is that in addition to undeath, her interpretation of undeath is filtered through the lens of gluttonous consumption. Her whole storyline is she became the first undead when she refused to die. Basically, she died, her soul was on the River of Souls, and she said, "No, I am not done enjoying all that life has to offer." She killed the psychopomp sent to guide her on her way, went back to the world, and was like, "I'm gonna party harder." And then she did. Um, so the first undead.
I love stories like that.
Yeah, it's really, really awesome. So you got the propagation of undeath. Her whole thing is like, no, death is an abomination. Undeath is the natural state of being, a thing that Pharasma, goddess of death, is like, no. And then her other thing is gluttonous consumption. So you consume without end. And it doesn't necessarily have to be food. It can be food, it can be drink, it can be, the pleasures of the flesh, it can be whatever. The consumption of whatever floats your boat essentially. And then the other one is the spreading of disease. And that one kind of seems a little bit out of left field, but my understanding is that the interpretation that Urgathoa and her followers have is that disease, germs, all that stuff, they are consuming the world about them, and therefore encouraging their spread is encouraging like a more global form of consumption, as opposed to just consumption in yourself. The main appeal with recruits, so the obvious question is, why would you worship this person? They seem really
Yes.
terrible. So it appeals to extraordinarily selfish people, basically people who are extreme hedonists with the understanding that they don't really care about how their hedonism impacts other people. Like hedonists alone are not enough to go to Urgathoa. It has to be that kind of hedonism paired with a degree of narcissism. Basically, your consumption must come at the expense of other people. And then, of course, there's the obvious, like, yeah, you get eternal life through undeath. You don't have to die. There's a very simple appeal in that, but it's really this like combination of you don't have to die plus all of this food, drink, and other like consumptions that you can deal with through that eternal life. Um, and then like, what do you do with Cultists of Urgathoa? One that I'm very familiar with because of a certain AP that I played through. I'm not going to spoil it here. You can cultivate and spread a plague through a city, maybe like this guy did. I was glad I was playing a paladin in that adventure path. I was much
Oh,
better off than my bard friend. You could also go on what's called a reaping. This is a unique thing that followers of Urgathoa do. Basically, if you've decided that this is mostly for this can be for living followers. It can be for undead followers. I've mostly heard it described for living followers. Um, you can dress yourself in, well, first of all, you decide you're going to go on a reaping, which is you are going to consume as much life as you possibly can. And by consume, I mean take. You dress yourself in all white robes. You pick up your weapon of choice, most commonly a war scythe, and then you just go kill as many people as you can possibly kill. No warnings, no nothing. And you basically do it in a way that your clothes get covered in blood. And the church then collects your nice white robes, or formerly white robes, and puts them on a display as a trophy. And if you do a good enough job, Urgathoa will raise you as an undead of some type. She has a very unique type of undead that is specific to her called a child of Urgathoa. They used to be daughters of Urgathoa, but she apparently got less sexist in the remaster. So, uh,
I think that anybody could be called a daughter of. Like in Vampire the Masquerade, there's the Daughters of Cacophony, but you can have a male daughter or a female daughter. It's a title.
yeah, yeah. In this instance, it actually was gendered back in first edition, so they just opened it up. But I was just making a joke. Like it's just a thing that they opened up. But then obviously that kind of pairs with just like the general destruction of small communities. If you have a Urgathoan undead lord, well, it's like, okay, when you're an early undead lord, you can't attack a city, but you can attack this little town over here. So yeah, so like this is the cult of Urgathoa. This is the first cult I ever fought in Pathfinder. Very fun to fight, especially if you have like a paladin or a cleric in your party. It's a good time.
Yeah, I can't really think of many PCs that would be one of these, but I do picture like the stereotypical rich fat cat who just hasn't had enough of life and they've reached the end of their natural lifespan and they have all the money in the world and it has never brought them peace. So now they
Hmm.
want to live forever.
Yes,
And
this is honestly, this is exactly who they appeal to in the lore. The vast majority, well, I shouldn't say the vast majority, an outsized proportion of Urgathoans are ex-nobles. People, I mean, they were nobles when they were alive. They're secret cultists and they live for as long as they can, and then they embrace unlife with all of their vast wealth and power. They have to give up all of their public facing stuff, especially if they turn into a kind of undead that can't hide it very well. But this is exactly what happens. A lot of Urgathoans come from, the rich, the wealthy, the powerful. I mean, it's the same people who are trying to achieve eternal life in Southern California right now. So,
yeah, and I could really picture them having rituals or rites. Like I could see them having like a citywide outreach by having like a public drunkenness day and just having
mm,
endless barrels of
yes.
ale so that everyone gets drunk off their asses,
Hmm.
or having like a feast day where the people are invited in off the street to feast,
Hmm.
not knowing that it's diseased, but hey, you get to be hedonistic and have all the food and drink you want.
Hmm.
And they might even like conduct magical rituals while they're drunk off their asses because that's their way of achieving a higher state.
Yep, you are honestly, you hit the nail on the head. This is exactly the type of stuff that they do. Like, yeah, honestly, it depends on the cult because if you got the guys who are cultivating a disease, they can't really afford to do that. But in other parts, this is exactly right. I actually think I've read about something similar being done. It might have been in the Absalom book or the travel guide, but you've hit the nail on the head. That's exactly how they can get away with being kind of quote unquote public facing. Obviously, they can't reveal themselves as cultists of Urgathoa because every Pharasman in the world would descend upon them and destroy them instantly. But
Sure,
that's
but
how
they
they
could
can
have
mask it, you know?
they could call themselves like the Unity Church.
Hmm.
Look, we give you food all the time. We have food banks for everyone.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, honestly, this is how they would have to operate in a world like that. Now, there are some exceptions. Obviously, places where the undead are in charge, like the undead nation of Geb. Urgathoa is the state religion. So like she actually has a lot of global and political power within that region. Within the Isle of Dread region and the Gravelands, she has limited control because there are a lot of Urgathoan cultists in the Whispering Way, which I'll talk about later. But yeah, so like it's really interesting how Paizo has played with the fact that like no, there are just regions where zombies are in charge. So it's kind of fun to see this become the Catholic Church in medieval Europe of Geb. You know,
Okay, I see the point. Yes. I gotta ask though, if this is the the nation's religion, then how do they have more gluttonous consumption or spreading of disease if everyone's undead? Do
so
they like promote war?
Geb is kind of an interesting place. So the way the nation of Geb works is that there are the undead people run everything. The Ghost King Geb is nominally in charge, and he is in charge. For a long time, it was kind of nominal because he just kind of did this hands-off thing, but now he's like, no, you guys pissed me off. I'm in charge again, and no one can fight him because he's one of the strongest wizards on the planet. But he's got these bloodlords, and the vast majority of the bloodlords are undead. There are a couple living ones, but they're pretty rare. And all of them kind of run all of the government administration. They do everything, but there are a lot of living people who live in Geb. There's the dead, and then there's the quick, and the quick is anybody who is not dead. Um, and the quick, there's like this really intricate political structure that outlines the rights of the quick and the rights of the dead and the interactions between these two groups of people. There's a certain amount of predation that is allowed,
Okay, so they
but
have victims.
it's not random. Like it is very structured. Like you will be converted into an undead worker when you die. That's part of the deal of living in Geb, but you are also protected because all of these people who are really knowledgeable about diseases don't want their living workers to die in unexpected ways. They're also extremely rich, and they will keep you alive and fed until you die, and then you get raised as a zombie. But that's the deal. So it's kind of interesting. They also have like neighboring nations that they can prey upon. The very famously Nex or Geb is at war with its neighbor Nex.
Yeah.
You try to prey upon them. They do have neighbors to the south that they try to prey upon, Alkenstar as well. So it definitely takes an interesting form, but I think the reason it works is because at this point it stops functioning as a cult and starts functioning as a state religion and takes on a much more administrative role.
Yeah, I agree. If you don't mind another little side jaunt, I saw this episode of Sliders, if you've ever seen that show.
I have not.
Oh, okay. It's fun for ideas to run in role-playing games.
Hmm.
So one of them was there is a nationwide lottery that if you win, you get killed and your family gets all your money. It's a reason to it's a way of reducing the population. So like you can go to any ATM and get money out, and if you are one of the people that took the most money out for free of an ATM, then
Hmm.
you get even more money and then get killed, and then your family gets the money. So I'm wondering if there's something similar in Geb, that like there's a lottery where some poor peasant who's living gets chosen, they get eaten, and then their family gets wealth.
So there's definitely recompense. I know there's payment for your family if you get preyed upon by an undead being. I don't know that it's that extreme, but there are definitely punishments imposed upon the person who preyed upon you, and also rewards given out to your family for the state having failed to protect you. I
Like
don't
everyone has
know that
life
it's that
insurance.
extreme because the living people they definitely exist as an underclass. They are afforded very specific protections, but it is it is very clear that they are the second class citizens as opposed to true equals. It's actually funny because there is very much a like a social there's very much a social movement moving through Geb within the setting right now to try and get the living people true one-to-one equal rights to the undead. It's just very funny to see them doing this where it's like, yeah, there's actually a lot of undead, like young undead who were raised in wealth and power, who've been reading a lot of philosophy, and now they're standing up for their living brothers and sisters, being like, no, they deserve equal rights. I'm like, this is good writing. I like this.
It is, and it's a parallel that we can follow. It's smart writing.
Exactly. Yeah, it's really, really smart. So, so that was Urgathoa. Definitely a little more far removed from any real world cult due to the focus on undeath, but that
Yeah.
extreme consumption is it very, very at home, especially with like all the tech bro BS going on right now. Like that's the thing that pops up to me is like, oh, this is what the weird Silicon Valley dudes are trying to do, but without the zombies. All right, now we're getting to the silly ones. So this is
This is where I just put on my student cap and I listen to the teacher. This I don't know anything about.
yeah, this is the Skinsaw cult. So, who is Father Skinsaw? Which is just a sick, sick name. All right, Father Skinsaw is one. He's actually a core deity in a sense. There's a core 20. One of the core 20 is Norgorber. Norgorber is the god of secrets. Norgorber has four secret aspects. No one worships Norgorber. You worship one of the four aspects. There is the Reaper of Reputation, who's kind of the god of blackmail. There's the Grey Master, who is kind of the god of thievery, but also like highway robbery. I'm missing one. Hang on, Reaper of Reputation, Grey Master. There's just a second. Hang on. I'm missing the fourth one. I can't believe I forgot this.
I'm hearing books and bottles clattering to the floor as you go through your mental library looking
It's
for the
just my
name.
phone. No, the books and bottles are on the other shelf. Black Fingers, there it is. All right. There's Black Fingers, the god of poisons and alchemy. And then there's the greatest of them all, Father Skinsaw, the
Black
god of
Fingers is
murder.
pretty cool too, though.
They're all cool. They're just really cool. But I just like Father Skinsaw because his guys dress up in masks made from human flesh, and then they dress up as like evil murder clowns with razor blades. Like they're hilarious.
Leatherface.
Yep, they're so great. Yeah, so Father Skinsaw is interesting because all he cares about is murder, bloodshed, and general chaos. That's the only thing he cares about. Like he's like, no, just kill people.
Chaos?
Just kill people.
Wow.
Like, I don't care how you do it. Don't get caught, but kill people. And if you get caught, as long as you killed enough people, it's probably fine. But the real appeal, these guys are psychotic. Like, and I'm not using this as like any mental designation. Like, they're just crazy. You know, like the appeal with these guys is like, oh, there's just you could just get away with whatever. You can do whatever you want because our whole purpose is to just kill as many people as we possibly can. It reminds me a lot of the villains in Scream, where they're just kind of do you remember the original Scream with
Yeah.
like the two guys where if I'm remembering their motivation right, it kind of comes down to like, you know, why not? Why not pursue this great thrill, this things that brings us, you know, this little bit of joy in this world full of masks and falsities and yada yada yada. And I might be misremembering that, but that's kind of the image that I get of the person who's drawn to this sort of thing. Somebody who's like, no, you know, nothing else holds an appeal for me. I can wear a mask when I need to, but the act of murder is this great release that I can indulge in as a person.
I could see someone joining this if they also have their brain broken from seeing some impossible to understand eldritch horror.
hmm Well, there's a character who did that very famously. He became kind of this thing called the Skinsaw Man. And yes, it's exactly that. So you know if your brain is broken, if you go through a traumatic enough experience and you're experiencing a truly like dissociative episodes, this is also where you might be drawn into the faith of of Father Skinsaw. The other one is there are there's the four aspects of Norgorber. If you are one of the other three, it might there's the path to radicalization built into these churches. They're not supposed to do that, but as you pursue greater and greater thrills in these other cults, be it blackmail, poisoning, or thievery, it would be very easy to kind of find yourself to the point where you're like, oh, I accidentally killed somebody. Oh, I actually like killing people. Like it's very easy to kind of accidentally worship another form or worship another form of Norgorber on purpose, but then accidentally kind of radicalize yourself into one of the more extreme aspects, eventually working your way all the way up to Father Skinsaw.
Okay.
These guys are kind of fun to use as villains because when you fight them, you don't have to care. It's like, what do they believe in? They believe in murder. Just kill them. There's no greater depth here. Just kill them.
It's like fighting a hag. A hag is just evil incarnate. They just want to boil your liver.
Exactly. Yeah, these guys are fun to kill. They have fun costumes. They're really popular in major cities. You don't see them as much outside of major cities just because it's really easy for them to hide. So like Magnamar, at one point in Varissia, had a pretty big cult of these guys. Absalom, these guys are on the cover of the Absalom book. So like there's a lot of them there.
Holy
Uh,
crap.
yeah, they are very they're surprisingly numerous, but it's because they're really isolated. The cells don't really talk to each other. So it's really hard to just wipe them all out. Um, but yeah, so like the things you can do with these guys is like obviously like you could do your standard murder plot line, and I'm thinking like if you want to go kind of dark with it, you can kind of take inspiration from like the Manson family because these guys are obviously pulling on some of that like murder cult that kind of started, what was the term we agreed upon? A
A
evil cult,
destructive cult.
destructive cult. Thank you. These guys are definitely playing on that like destructive cult vibe that kind of started coming to light in like the 60s and 70s. And then there's obviously like you can play upon the fact that the Church of Norgorber is really four churches. You could have some fun with like a religious schism taken to the extreme when your four teachings are poison, blackmail, thievery, and murder. It's like, what does a schism in that church look like? It's going to be interesting. It's not going to be
Yeah, it is.
fun, but it's going to be interesting.
It might even be something like bringing dead tissue to life just to see what chaos it could bring. Like a bunch of, uh, what are they called? Fleshy skin ripped, something or other. There's a piece of flesh that's given sentience and life and it seeks other people to draw their blood out. I forgot what it was. But I could see like
Ugh.
the Blackfinger one who likes alchemy just trying to animate dead flesh. They figure out how to do that and they just unleash it on a populace.
Yeah, I could definitely, and then then get radicalized is like, ooh, I like what this did. Let me make more of these as an offering to Father Skinsaw. Yeah, it's like
Yeah.
you could really play with this a lot, especially with those four aspects and how they interact with each other. But this is not a complex cult, ideologically speaking. They're very simple, but I think in my mind that's their appeal. It's like they're psychotic killers. Just fight them.
That is, from a GM's perspective, the easiest way to use them.
Hmm.
From a PC's perspective, or maybe NPC's perspective, I could see somebody being previously involved with them or somebody being drawn into this
Hmm.
by like the Manson. Okay, so I want to point out something for our listeners. Manson family, that term just means Manson and his followers. They weren't
Hmm.
actually family. I mean, he called them wives, but they were really just followers.
Hmm.
So some of his, no, not some of his original murders were all vengeance.
Hmm.
So, yes, there's just slaughtering for this religious cult, but you could go into it for any reason. If
Hmm.
it's all about killing people, like Podfind, like Phil said, sorry, man, I'm
Yeah,
looking at
you're
your
good.
image. Like Phil said, you could start being in this cult for any sorts of reasons. Like
Hmm.
there are ecstatic rituals. I should define that. So there are rituals that people do to reach a higher level of consciousness. Like they will somehow be attuned with the greater chaos or greater entropy or the force of unmaking. And some of that is just taking a bunch of drugs or sleep deprivation. And what does that do to you? It makes you a little psychotic. So there are a lot of different avenues to become part of this cult. And what I mean by ecstasy or ecstatic cult or ecstatic rituals is it's not like pleasure ecstasy, it's ecstasy, not static. So
Hmm.
it's something that is energetic that brings you to a different level of consciousness. So things like dancing, singing, drumming, smoking a lot of weed, whatever it is.
Hmm. Yeah,
So
I
yeah, I
could
can see a lot of
definitely
different
see.
paths to this.
Yeah, the other cool thing to do with these guys is because they don't really care about like who they kill or why they kill, you can actually like use these guys as kind of an unintentional hit squad. If you manage to, this has
Randomly.
happened in the lore several times. Uh, People will gain enough influence over like this cult, the members of this cult, or they'll figure out how to kind of inconspicuously feed them information and just be like, there's a lot of people who would be very vulnerable to a murder over in that house over there.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. Yeah, there's one person who actually used these guys to initiate like a mass sacrifice. They needed to induce a certain amount of death um like within this specific location for a ritual. And what they did is they directed these guys toward people who were valid targets for that particular sacrifice. And they're like,
Okay.
"You're my kill method. You guys are my soul harvesting method. All you need to do is kill them. You don't need to know why you're killing them, and frankly, you don't care."
Right. I could
Yeah.
see even a non-good PC doing that.
Hmm.
Like the GM introduces, oh well, there's this symbology of you might think it's some aspect of Norgorber, and then the thief goes over there and is like, so what do you guys do? Oh, I've heard about this politician over here. Yeah, he doesn't leave his doors locked at night, and then they sneak out and unlock the door.
Hmm.
Um, so I could see them like taking out targets for the adventure by just knowing what's around. So that's a really good idea of how to use these as a GM.
Yeah, these guys are a lot of fun just because they're very much a loose cannon in the sense that they do not care who you point them at. They're just gonna go. Which makes them also good as villains because as soon as they catch the scent of the PCs, they will not stop.
Yeah, there's no
Very,
reason to.
very, very similar to the Red Mantis Assassin Guild, but way less organized.
I could see them as like in comic books. Sometimes I've seen like an assassin hit squad be like pill poppers. I could see
Mm-hmm.
these guys just being high all the time
Yeah.
on PCP, adrenaline, whatever.
Yeah, you could definitely do some stuff with that. I forget what the in-universe drugs are, but you could use quite a few of the different ones that have been detailed over the years. All right, now we're getting to the outer gods. I don't really like the Cthulhu mythos, so I only included the one of those deities that I care for. Uh, Nhimbaloth. Have you ever heard of Nhimbaloth?
Only vaguely. I like a couple of the Lovecraftian um, deities, and Nhimbaloth isn't really one that's come up.
No, so there's a reason for that. Nhimbaloth is custom for Pathfinder, but because she's custom for Pathfinder and exists within the Cthulhu mythos, she is now public domain to some extent. There are
Huh.
aspects of her that are owned wholly by Paizo, but James Jacobs specifically created her as like his contribution to the public domain aspect of the Cthulhu mythos because so much of that is
Oh,
public.
neat.
So very cool. Yeah, like you can find an entry on her on like the Lovecraftian wiki because she's just part of the mythos that people can use now. But what is Nhimbaloth? Nhimbaloth is an outer goddess, an eldritch deity, the Cthulhu type stuff, of undeath. And this is the reason that I like her when I really don't like the outer gods, elder Cthulhu type stuff. That just it doesn't really
Well,
appeal to
most of
me.
them just don't care about anything.
Exactly. Nhimbaloth does care. Her whole thing is very specific. She likes to prey upon souls, and specifically the souls that have been partially digested by other predators. So like what she's doing in this art
What?
right now. Yeah. So Nhimbaloth is the thing with the star on her head. The thing she's eating is a really powerful Astradaemon who is itself consuming a soul from the River of Souls. And that is her favorite way to eat, is to eat things that are eating, and to eat them while they are still eating. Uh, that is her deal. She's really weird, and I love it.
Maybe it tastes better because it's marinated first.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, but she's really into it. She basically exists. She can manifest as like this physical body, but she can also manifest as this planet out in the dark tapestry, the space, the darkness between the stars. And if her planet form ever gets close to another planet, it draws every soul from that planet into itself. and then just ends all life on that planet. So she's a moving apocalypse. Now, she
Holy
doesn't
crap.
move quickly and she doesn't really move deliberately. She just kind of floats. But yeah, she's interesting. She has this very specific mythos that I really like. She's also tied into undeath, because like the idea is souls that move on to the River of Souls cannot be consumed by her when she finally gets to Golarion. So like if you are loyal, you will become undead so that you can wait around to be consumed when her planet finally gets to you. Uh,
Yay.
yeah, joy, right? What a tempting fate. Uh,
What the
there,
hell?
it's actually noted. It's kind of funny. They actually note there's a lot of followers of her that are just like, it's gonna take her so long to get here. Even if I become undead, I'll probably be destroyed like after a few thousand years. But that's a few
Oh,
thousand years
okay.
of power. So uh,
I could
yeah.
see them like not caring or thinking that it's sort of like eternity anyway.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it is effectively eternity to these people because it's like, it's a million years away, if not more. It's like other things are going to destroy Galarian before she gets here. Come on.
There are also some people who are just so depressed that they want nothingness.
Hmm.
Like in Vampire, no, sorry, in Interview with the Vampire, Louis, when he is embraced, he just wants to be nothing. He's
Hmm.
fine with being dead and not existing anymore.
Hmm.
And it just happened to be a vampire that grabbed him. But if it happened to be Nhimbaloth's cult instead, he'd be like, okay, fine.
Yep. Yeah, and there's definitely a lot more nihilism that in her cult. Like there's definitely this appeal of just like nihilistic nothingness. Even if like you can indulge through undeath, but you can also just indulge in nothingness. You don't have to feel anything anymore depending on the type of undead you become. Um, there's one of her major forces that she acts through are the wisps, the willow wisps, the things like that. These aberrations that kind of
Feed on
portray
emotion.
souls and like draw people to their death. And
Yeah.
it's just a really interesting bit of mythos. And like for an eldritch deity, her cult actually has some pretty specific goals in like, no, we need to become undead, but it's not so that we can accumulate power. It's not so that we can indulge forever. It's so that we can be here for her, so that we can be consumed and feed her. It's really interesting. And like she's willing to offer power. Like she will offer power to those who are serving her loyally. There's a very famous character in another famous adventure path. The main villain of an adventure path, one of the most popular ones out there, is a follower of Nhimbaloth because because of the power she offers to people with not a lot of meaningful caveats. So
I could also see somebody following her who is just burnt out, depressed, or not
yes.
necessarily depressed, but just burnt out of life.
Hmm.
And maybe they've done things that they regret, that they feel bad about. Numbness can be a
Hmm.
huge appeal.
Yes, very much so. And that's definitely something that she and her people could offer, even if it's not an explicit part of her edicts. She has enough elder god stuff going on that there's definitely this sense of like she doesn't really care why you serve her loyalty. She'll give you what you need to do it. Because she doesn't, she has very specific goals, but like the methods of those goals aren't really necessary. She doesn't need a specific personality type. It's like just if you're doing what you're doing, she'll give you what you need, which is just like it's vague enough, but also specific enough to be interesting. She clearly cares about some things, but not about others, which is really nice for somebody like me who doesn't like the Elder God mythos. Um, the interesting thing about these guys is, so Nhimbaloth actually went toe to toe with Pharasma one time. She lost, but Pharasma took a pretty serious injury, and that's the only time Pharasma has ever been hurt, period.
Oh,
Now,
okay.
granted, she never fought somebody like Rovagug, so like Pharasma doesn't fight very often, but she is, the creator deity of the universe. So the fact that Nhimbaloth can hurt her is very alarming. The other notable thing is that Nhimbaloth cultists have kind of specialized into fighting and specifically corrupting and driving insane followers of Pharasma who are sent to destroy them. So, like, Pharasma has, she's got like undead inquisitors because undeath is an abomination. they are allowed to just kind of run wild within reason. They're allowed to do the Van Helsing thing where they kind of go out and do their own undead hunting spree, but they all have very clear orders. If you ever, under any circumstances, encounter cultists, books, or anything related to Nhimbaloth, bring it back. Do not engage. You are not enough. No matter how strong you are,
Oh,
you need
wow.
backup. Because like her holy text is designed to drive people, and especially for Rasmans, completely insane.
That makes sense.
It's really cool how specialized she is into this rivalry. And it doesn't even seem like it's particularly hateful on her part. It's just like, no, I must oppose you. So
You mean
just
on Pharasma's part?
on Nimbaloth's part. No, Pharasma, I mean, Pharasma hates her as much as Pharasma hates
Oh,
all
yeah, that seems
undead
very
beings.
personal.
Yeah. Yeah. She's not a particularly passionate in terms of displays, but she's just like, no, all undead people, like, y'all are an abomination that I must destroy you. But Nimbaloth is just like, no, we must be opposed. That's just the nature of what we are. So,
I kind of like that there's like thoughtlessness involved in Nhimbaloth's actions. Like
yeah,
this is
yeah,
not
there's a
overanalyzed. This
degree
is
of
just
distance
nature.
that's really refreshing from a storytelling perspective.
Yeah, it's objectivity, and that's not often found.
Hmm. So,
I do want to point out the one uh, Lovecraftian outer god that I like that's in the system is Nyarlathotep. Partly
mm-hmm.
because he's related to Egyptian uh, philosophy, but partly because he is the outer god that has the most close contact with humanoids because
Mm.
he takes on different shapes and forms that they
Yes.
interact with.
Hmm.
So it's like he likes disguising himself among the populace. That's interesting to me.
I did not realize he was associated with ancient Egypt. Can you expand upon that?
No, because I don't remember.
Oh, okay, cool. That is fine. I knew he had an aspect called the faceless sphinx. I did not associate that with Egypt Sphinx necessarily. I guess I've played too many tabletop RPGs because that's a pretty obvious connection that I should have made.
I don't recall. I'm sorry. I'll have to
No,
read that
you're
more.
good. We'll talk about that later. I'm working on some other stuff right now, which I'm not going to mention because I don't know when this video is coming out, that
Yeah.
has Nyarlathotep involved in it. So, but yeah, that is cool. All right.
Do you want to skip to the next? Never mind.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
let's jump to the next one. All right, next, something very much in my wheelhouse.
Oh, wait, let me
Uh,
ask, how many more of the slides do you have?
I have one, two, three, four, and that's it. So I have
Okay.
four cults, including this one.
Okay.
All right. So up next, I have something very much in my wheelhouse, the cult of the Peacock Spirit.
Shit. I'm sorry. Can we back up for a moment?
Oh, you're good. Yeah, what's up?
Okay, so there are a lot of ritual practices in modern paganism and ancient paganism that
Mm,
could be uh, easily tailored to Nhimbaloth, and one of them
okay.
is ritualistic death. You
Ooh,
you stay in either a grave or a carved coffin in stone, sealed
sick.
up in the dark, suffocating for who knows how long. You don't actually die from it, but it's a ritualistic rebirth. It's supposed to give you a new, clearer understanding of the world and appreciation for life. But
Hmm.
in Nimbaloth's case, it could be used to help attune you with nothingness.
Mm, hmm. Oh, that's interesting. I like that as something that you could very easily add to the lore. That's really cool. I like that not only as something that followers of Nimbaloth could use, but also people who are trying to understand her cult to potentially fight it could
Oh yeah, or
incorporate
infiltrate.
some. Yeah, exactly. Could use something like that to like, it presumably in Pathfinder there would be a mechanical capital R ritual that would incorporate something like that as part of the as part of like their practices. I really like that as an idea.
Yeah, I could see Pharasman trying to infiltrate and get into Nimbaloth's cult, and they would have to participate and act like they're one of them, so they could go through something like that.
Yes, yeah, for sure. That's really cool. Thank you for bringing that. I'm not at all familiar with modern day cultic practices, so that is really good information to have. That is something I would definitely incorporate into a plot line like that.
This is going to be such a good video.
I hope so. I think it will.
Don't laugh at me. It's cool.
All right, are we good? Did you have other ones you want to talk about with Nimbaloth or any of the previous deities?
What was the previous one? I think we already did that.
The previous one was Father Skins. I just meant if you had any other rituals you wanted to talk about or like
Yeah, I
practices.
did have one. Well, I was talking about drugs with Father Skinsaw, but another one that I thought might be fitting with Father Skinsaw was bloodletting.
Mm-hmm.
That's something that is today, at least as far as I know, only symbolically done,
Mm-hmm.
as in like you get cut and bleed a little bit, and this is symbolically your lifeblood running out to feed the earth, to feed the
Mm-hmm.
cosmos, to give thanks, to be part of this culture, this cult. But it could be used in a cult like this in
For sure.
extreme to
Yep.
make someone actually bleed a lot
Mm-hmm.
so that they understand the violence they're getting involved in. So they feel
Mm-hmm.
it first. And they might even have like ritual scarring as a rite of passage.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could see that here. I could also see it in the cult of Urgathoa because there's actually this really interesting schism that Paizo has detailed between the Church of Urgathoa, so the goddess of undeath, and the Church of Zura, the goddess of vampirism specifically. So we kind of briefly talked about her in our collab on vampires. Go check it
Vampires.
out, everybody. It was really good. Uh, But Zura's whole thing is, I mean, she's a vampire. So for her, blood is a power source. It is a thing that you can use to do other stuff. Urgathoa, blood is life, and life is not sacred. It is in fact the opposite of sacred. It is a thing to be avoided. So bloodletting for Urgathoa, for the cult of Urgathoa, is what you were just describing. You bloodlet to the extreme to cause someone to bleed out and die because life itself is the missed opportunity, it's the false, it is the false form of existence.
It's profane.
Um, yeah, exactly. It is itself a profane thing. Now, the realistically, they would probably seek to raise that person then as undead because that is considered true life. But you could definitely, for those deemed unworthy of that form of existence, you could definitely just make it like, nope, this is just how they ritualistically killed you.
That could be a high ritual for Urgathoa. Like
Absolutely.
in Order of the Golden Dawn or OTO, they would do a ritual that is energetic, that is ecstatic, that takes hours to get you to be blessed by the group and by ancient deities to ascend to a higher rank and become like the head of the church.
Hmm. Yeah, you could definitely do something like that here for sure. Wouldn't even be that hard to incorporate into all of the existing writing. So, yeah, for sure.
I have
Uh,
too much fun talking about this shit with you.
This is good stuff. Well, you're really gonna have fun with this one then. So the Peacock Spirit. Have you ever heard of the Peacock Spirit?
Hell no.
All right, cool. Most people haven't because it existed 10,000 years ago. All right. This one, unless you've played a very specific adventure path, you have never heard of these guys before in your life. And one that's coming out right now. Uh, but I won't go into any more details. So, the Peacock Spirit, what is it? 10,000 years ago, in the time of ancient Thassalon, this is why I know this, it's a Rune Lords thing. In the time of ancient Thassalon, Rune Lord Xandergul was the strongest of the Rune Lords. He was the Rune Lord of Pride. He's one of only two Rune Lords who was never deposed and never replaced by anybody else. The other one was Sorshan, Rune Lord of Lust. Xandergul was the illusionist, most powerful illusionist ever, most powerful wizard to have ever been statted in the Golarian universe. He is, and I mean that literally, like James Jacobs just said recently in an interview, he has statted Xandergul against Tar-Baphon, and Xandergul is stronger. Uh, by a significant enough margin that he would win in a fight pretty consistently. He's very
Wow.
powerful. Yeah. Um, so Xandergul founded this new religion around a god that he discovered, that god being the Peacock Spirit, a minor deity of arcane study, and then the perfection of like this trinity of the self, your mind, your body, and your soul. And then like by cultivating those three things, you gained the right of rulership. Now, if all of this sounds very self-serving, that's because it is, because the Peacock Spirit is Xandergul. He ascended to divinity, didn't tell anybody, and founded his own religion, of which he became the high priest.
Wow, talk about narcissism.
Yeah, this dude is narcissism personified. His characterization is amazing. He founds like four cults dedicated to himself. It is hilarious. It is so funny.
This
The writing
structure
the
and
writing
the
for
focus.
Xandergul is amazing. He is so consistent every time he has a chance. And every time there's a problem he can't solve where he just needs followers to do his bidding, he's like, new cult to me. Obviously, I am deserving of this. We're just founding a new one. He's done it at least twice in ancient Thassalon, once in modern times, and he may or may not be doing it again right now. I'm not going to spoil anything.
Can you imagine how fun it would be to roleplay that guy in a session?
Oh, yeah, it would be so much fun. You can roleplay him as a villain in Return of the Runelords. Um, I'm not saying whether or not he's coming up again in the future. He may or may not be on the cover of a book. I don't know if that's a spoiler for some people. But yeah, so the whole thing about these guys is that their appeal is very clearly like power. If you follow me and my teachings, by which I mean the teachings of my God, that's totally not me, then uh, you will get power. You will get financial power, you will get spiritual power, you will get political power. You will get all of this stuff. There's this very definitive, climbable hierarchy that you can work your way up. This is Nexium. This is Synanon. This is, all that stuff that you see in the, 60s and 70s cults that have kind of gone into like the more modern tech bro cults. It's that climbable hierarchy that you can work your way up and make yourself better and get the secrets to, manifesting this great thing for yourself. Like this is that. But there's actual magic, Um,
All of
so
this
it
structure goes back to the Illuminati who stole it from the Masons.
Yes, and honestly, that yeah, I'm sure they're pulling from stuff that I can't even begin to imagine. But you're right. Like I am, I knew the Illuminati was a thing. I knew the Masons were a thing. But if you're telling me that they're pulling that stuff back, I, I, I'm sure you're
Yeah,
absolutely
the
right. That sounds like
structure and
something they would
this
be doing.
climbable. The only thing that's really missing is like secret handshakes.
They didn't do that, but they had a lot of secret rituals. So so
Wow.
funny thing about these guys, you were talking about like the secret mysteries of these cults, and these guys actually have a very well-defined secret mystery that they have. So so they have a capital R ritual, and I'm delineating that because Pathfinder, for those who are
Yeah.
uninitiated, Pathfinder has a very specific thing called a ritual, which is you can work like real, actual mechanical magic without having to cast a spell. That's what I'm referring to when I say a capital R ritual. They
And they're
have
awesome
one.
and flexible, and you should all watch my videos on them.
They are very cool. You should watch his videos on them. I like rituals, even if I will admit they are hard to put into the APs because they allow for some pretty interesting power in a pre-written book. So like I get why they're not always there. But one of the ways that Paizo did do them, this was back in Return of the Runelords, where you can tell that they were kind of playing with, this was first edition. They were really laying the groundwork for how rituals were going to work mechanically in second edition. And the way they did that was with this thing called the Viridian Transcendence. And it's a cool name. What it
Yeah.
was Xandergul was a pride spellcaster. What that means is he could cast illusions. That meant he couldn't cast conjurations and transmutations. Not really a big problem. He doesn't need to summon anybody, and anything that he wants to change, he can just make look like the thing that he wants, even if it's not real. Problem. Conjurations include teleportation. He can't teleport, and he is the greatest wizard of all time. He has to walk his ass wherever he wants to go. That makes him look stupid. What did he do? He built the Viridian Transcendence, a thing that was a one-way teleport back to his castle. And then he taught it to all of his people so that they could, wherever they were, if they were ever in trouble, Viridian Transcendence back to their home temple. Now it only goes to one place. Rumor has it that Xandergul had a version that could go anywhere, but he didn't tell it to anybody.
He's
We've never
pride. Of course
seen.
he didn't.
Of course he did. Of course he had it, and of course he told nobody. But to be fair, we've never seen it. Like there are no mechanics for it. That
Or
said,
did you? And there was just illusion over it. You didn't know you saw it.
exactly. That being said, Xandergul absolutely did do that because that is the most him thing he could have possibly done. Uh, but they have this thing where you can learn it. You can learn the very specific ritual, and it's really interesting because it involves putting on a performance, like a very visual sonic performance. There's dance incorporated into it. There's
Cool.
singing incorporated into it. It is very evocative of what you would expect from like a true religious ritual that you would associate with like cultic mysteries. So it's really cool how they incorporated that into the mechanics beyond just you make your skill checks with your four basic magic skills. So it was really well written.
I like this. This really speaks of a lot of different real world past cults and organizations, like
Hmm.
the Hermetic Order. Um, so this cult would obviously have singing, dancing, probably drumming,
Hmm.
and super long rituals. So they would have the 8 hour long rituals where you have to inscribe diagrams within diagrams within diagrams
Hmm.
and walk around multiple times saying different things and lighting different things on fire or destroying or bringing things to different parts of it, and everything has to be done perfectly in step every
Yep.
time.
Hmm.
And that's supposed to bring you, all of those things are supposed to bring you to a higher level of thought and consciousness and power.
Hmm.
Mainly just makes you exhausted.
Hmm. Yeah, and this is exactly what they would do. So like Xandergul's whole, I mean, this perfection of mind, body, and soul, that's exactly how it would have manifested through that hyper specific type of ritual that he's talking about. And kind of bringing it back to those destructive cults that we were talking about at the beginning, all of this stuff secretly was empowering Xandergul. If you went on the pilgrimage that you had to go on, you don't have to do it all the time. It's like it's a once in a lifetime thing for most people. You have to go to this place called the Grand Temple of the Peacock Spirit, and when you walk through the gate is enchanted and it takes part of your soul. And that becomes part of this awesome battery that Xandergul could use to power all of his most powerful magic.
Oh my God.
Yeah, yep.
Yeah,
This
that
is
is
where
the
the
destructive
destructive
cult.
cult stuff comes
Yeah.
in. Yep.
Wow. That's like sign over your life insurance policy to me. Oops, she died.
Yeah, exactly. Xandergul is the type of guy who would do that. Yes.
Wow.
Yeah, he is the Keith Raniere of Golarion 10,000 years ago. That's the Nexium guy.
Oh, okay. I'm like, I don't know who that is.
That's the only one I remember because I watched it Behind the Bastards on it. But but yeah, this guy's cool. Again, he's evil beyond belief, but he's really, really well written. Super fun to play as a bad guy. Plus,
He's
these
really
guys have
smart too.
oh yeah, he's smart, he's strong, like and like I'm not showing a picture of him right here, but like these are his cultists and they have style. Like all of these people look amazing when you fight them. They're dressed to the nines at all times, which is just fun to fight.
You know, I could totally see anybody who is an initiate of any minor arcane study becoming part of this cult because it just seems attractive.
Mm-hmm.
I get to learn more about arcane mysteries and dress really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. What does it
Ex
cost me? A silver a year? Fine.
yeah, exactly. The other cool thing about this is so it was the state religion within Xandergul's own kingdom in Thassalon, but it was also really popular in all of the other kingdoms in Thassalon, which means he had a built-in spy network.
That does remind me of the cult of Isis in Rome because that cult was in multiple cities and regions, and they also had public displays
Hmm.
where they would just have basically a parade or something that was music and just performative.
Hmm.
But there were people on the streets that would see the cult of ISIS doing stuff publicly, and that seems like something he would do.
Absolutely. 100% something he would do. And like this had militant orders, it had monastic orders, it had scholarly orders. Like this thing was huge at the height of its power. And it was really interesting the level of specialization he encouraged in different branches of his own cult. It was really cool. They did a really good job writing this group.
Yeah, this is very intricate
Yeah.
and
Uh,
very true to our world's history.
yeah, really, really well written. It feels like they plucked this out of like ancient Greece, ancient
Yeah, it
Rome.
does.
Yeah, they did a great job writing this one. Another one that they've done a great job of writing is the Whispering Way. And this is the first explicitly non-religious cult that we're talking about.
That's a damn cool picture.
Right? Isn't that a cool picture of old Tarbaths? Like, there's a lot of cool art of him, but this one is one of my favorites. He just looks so good. For those uninitiated, this is Tar-Baphon. He is the Lich King of the setting. He is the most powerful necromancer in the world, second most powerful wizard ever statted by Paizo, was first most powerful until James Jacobs did that interview a few months ago and said, no, Xander Ghoul is stronger. Uh, he's awesome. Just for reference, the horns on this helmet of his, just for a reference of how powerful he is, he ripped these horns from the head of an ancient black dragon with no effort whatsoever. That is how strong this guy is. Um, yeah, level 20, mythic 10, probably. Might be mythic 9, depending. But so he is the kind of sort of head of the Whispering Way, but I'll get into that in a minute. What is the Whispering Way? The Whispering Way is a philosophical cult. They are not religious in the sense that they don't explicitly worship a divinity, but they also do not outlaw the worship of divinities within their ranks, which is just kind of an interesting. I mean, it makes sense in a world where the gods are like provably real and can grant spells to clerics.
Yeah, you'd want
It
some
would be
members.
very weird to say no, clerics of undead deities can't join our necromancy cult. Um, but the big thing about the Whispering Way is they've existed for as long as basically written record on Golarion exists. They predate, to some extent, they predate the demise of Thassalon. The first records of them come around right after Earthfall, so the giant meteor that started the Age of Darkness 10,000 years ago. Um, it's hinted that they actually predate that because there's a lot of necromancers around before that that clearly passed along knowledge that the Whispering Way then derived. Where they get their name from is the Whispering Way is a philosophy that basically death and undeath is the natural form of existence, and that the elimination of all life is the path toward a perfect ordered universe, and specifically a perfectly ordered Golarion. Um, their goal is to create a dead world over which they can reign with perfect order and perfect hierarchy. They're zombie Nazis.
That's
That's kind of their
insane.
whole
That's
thing.
never gonna happen.
Right? It's well, and I mean it's provable. Like Eox is the undead planet, and it is a mess. Uh, they are very clearly wrong, but they're powerful enough that they can delude themselves. Um, yeah. So the reason they get their name, the Whispering Way, is this philosophy and all of the magical secrets that they have to be told orally and only in a whisper. You have to physically get close to each other and whisper into each other's ears in order to pass the secrets. Now, they can have written records. Yeah, they're very cool. They can have written records of things that are considered mundane or things that are considered common knowledge and not a secret of a cult. So, like a wizard within their ranks can still have a spell book because
Okay.
obviously they need one, but also like if they have a spell that is that powerful that it needs to be kept a secret, they can't write it down. They have to figure out some other way of storing it.
This is a
Um,
true mystery cult, then nobody outside of the cult would know anything about it, even historically.
exactly. And they go hard on this. So I actually did like a really big deep dive into these guys last year for Halloween 2024. That video was like 3 hours and 15 minutes. But so they actually go really hard into the mystery cult thing because the way they broke their cult out is it is really siloed to where not everybody knows every secret. Most people don't even know half the secrets. They only know little portions, and then their people below them know portions of that. And then it's really interesting because like to work your way up, you have to like collaborate with the people at your level, but then also go to the person above you and figure out how those two pieces of information connect together. And then it all flows up to this guy at the top. Now, technically, the Whispering Way does not have a leader. There is no king. There is no like divine mandated leader. But Tarbathon is the smartest. He knows everything that the cult does, and he is so much stronger than everybody else that if he gives you an order, you will follow it. Uh, because he will just destroy you if you don't. So while he is not technically in charge, he is basically in charge. Um,
It's like the Illuminati with a deity backing it. I mean, even the compartmentalized structure.
yeah, yeah, it's really interesting. And like they do a really good job of like it honestly that's a really good plot convenience because um that
Yes, it is.
it is because you could take out a Whispering Way cult and it's like yeah of course you didn't damage the whole organization. They're structured so that you specifically can't do that because they know everyone hates them. uh,
Well, and also, where is your leader? I don't know. I
I
have
don't
no
know.
idea.
I don't know where he is. Yeah. Well, in the case of Tarbathon, you actually do know where he is because he's like he has a giant sign over his island that is a permanent negative energy storm that says, "Hey, I live here. Come and fight me. See what happens." Uh, it would not go well for anybody. The nations of the inner sea. So there's this massive thing called the Encarthan Alliance. It's like 7 or 8 whole countries that surround the lake that his island is in. And they're like, okay, the 7 countries of us together, we've been planning for like a decade now how to even fight this guy in a defensive war. We haven't even started thinking about how to fight offense against this guy. He is unassailable on his fortress at this time. But yeah, he's really really strong. Uh, but the cool
You
thing
don't want to
about
fight any wizard on their own
whoop,
turf.
there we go. Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, it's that taken to the extreme because his turf is unbelievable. Again, like if you get a chance, go check out my video on it. His turf that he has established for himself is unreal. The level of defense, like he has cultivated a connection to the void. So like undead will just heal on his island. Uh,
Oh,
yeah, he's got these storms of undead energy, which are these weird two-dimensional planar storms over the island that blot out the sun, and they shoot black lightning that deals negative energy damage. He is it's so cool.
neat. It's
It's
paradise for vampires.
it is, and it's I mean, except that no living creatures live there, so they get really hungry. But other than that, it's great. That's actually a major problem in the Whispering Way is that the vampires who are members of the Way are like, wait, everybody's gonna die? What are we gonna eat?
Not the animals, right?
Yeah,
Not the
yeah,
animals.
yeah. Even the animals, guys. Yeah, it's actually a major schism. In the way it has been a schism in the Way in the past. Whenever a vampire who's sufficiently powerful figures that out, it's like, wait a minute.
I could see that being like the Misty Way, like the
hmm
offshoot splinter of the
Yeah,
Whisper.
well, the funny thing is there have been attempts at offshoots, but there's this one vampire, Malleus, who would great name for a vampire.
Yeah,
He has Tarbathon's greatest general.
it means
Um,
hammer.
what was that?
It means hammer.
Ah, that's a really good name then, because that's funny because he was the hammer to Tarbathon's anvil in the war. That is really funny. That's a good pun, Paizo, if that was intentional. Um, so Malleus is this insanely powerful vampire. I love him because he's just like a level 18 fighter. Like he's not a wizard or anything. He's just I hit things real hard. Uh, but he is unassailably loyal to Tarbathon, and nobody can figure out why. Because if Tarbathon wins, he's going to starve to death. And Malleus is like, "Yep," and you're still going to do what I say because if you don't, I'm going to kill you. Uh,
Wow,
he's
that's an
great.
interesting relationship.
Yeah, I don't know what his deal is. I like him. I hope that he gets his own adventure path someday because he's really cool. But we've gotten some cool stuff on the Whispering Way. The Whispering Way is fun. I mean, they're fun for a lot of different reasons, but um, the narcissism and sense of intellectual superiority by these guys is unbelievable. These guys are unhinged in how much they all think that they are the center of the universe. Like the vast majority of the people that you run into who are Whispering Way cultists, aside from the ones who are just, unhinged and like cackling maniacs, aside from those, when you get to the ones who have managed to hold on to some of their sanity, they are all like, I am the center of the universe and the greatest wizard of all time, and clearly I am strong enough to be Tarbathon's right-hand man. Obviously, I'm level 5, by the way.
Have you ever heard Jim Carrey talk about his religion?
I have not.
I
No.
know, out of left field. Sorry.
That's an interesting question. Well, here's the thing. I know his religious views are interesting, but I've never heard him speak on the matter.
Okay, so it's actually the reason that I found that I'm interesting is because it's a spiritual philosophy that I had when I was in my early 20s. So it's the idea that the only thing that you can be certain of is your own consciousness.
Hmm.
You can't be certain that the reality around you is reality. It
Hmm.
might simply be interpretations of your brain.
Hmm.
So you can never be certain that what you see is real. And if all that you have confidence in is yourself, then the world should bend to your will. And so the followers of the Whispering Way, I could see them being so egocentric that they
Hmm.
don't think that anything matters or exists besides themselves. And so they think that everything will always turn out their way.
I could absolutely see that. That is exactly the level of delusion that I would expect from these people. Like 100% on board with that for a story
That
element.
that is the same perspective of almost, okay, I shouldn't say almost all, most modern day, our real world uh spell users, spell
Hmm.
casters,
Hmm.
believing that what they will makes reality, sort of like everyone's Neo.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, I can see how you would like mentally speaking, I can see the steps you take to walk your way there, and no one of them is necessarily like that crazy. You know, like no one step is that insane, but the journey you've
Right.
gone on is definitely
Overall,
it definitely takes you to an interesting place. Um, but like, yeah, you're that's absolutely how you could write characters within this cult. And like, especially because like the amount of pressure that some of these people would have to be under, especially once they intentionally or unintentionally draw the attention of Tar-Baphon or his direct lieutenants, like the amount of pressure they are under is absolutely insane to deliver. Because if you piss him off, he'll just kill you. He doesn't need any one person. Um, like there's this story of within the cult there's this one guy, oh crap, what was his name? He's a demi-lich now. He's this demi-lich who did a bunch of research. He translates so at one point he translates the Necronomicon and wrote it down, breaking the rules of the cult. You're not allowed to write that kind of powerful stuff down. And then he was taking it to Tar-Baphon thinking, oh, I broke the rules, but if I give him the Necronomicon, he'll think it's fine. Anyway, he got killed and lost it. Um, and now it's gone.
idiot.
Yeah, because he's an idiot. And now he's like, oh, thank God no one knew that I wrote that down. I have to burn my research so that no one knows this got out. And by the way, I didn't keep any copies. I can't do this again.
Wow.
Yep. The level of pressure these people are under is just crazy, which really helps to explain why so many of them turn into cackling lunatics.
I have to ask. I don't think that I think there is something that is like that in Pathfinder 2, but in third edition D&D, there was a Kira stone, something that allows you to basically keep books inside your own head inside a little gem. Would that also be against the tenets of the Whispering Way?
That is a good question, and I do not know the answer. So there is something similar in Pathfinder First Edition. There's a couple different things like that. The one that pops out to me is Zin, the founder of Thassalon, used these spell wells, which are like these rotating spiralized stones with runes on them that would kind of draw you into an optical illusion, and all the runes would form words, and that was his spell book. Um,
Wow, damn, that's cool.
it's really cool. You could theoretically store other information in those, I think, because you're not actually carving the runes down. So like maybe it wouldn't count as writing. The other thing to note is like the Whispering Way, there are situations where they have written stuff down. Well, let me rephrase that. There are situations where Tar-Baphon has written stuff down, but I don't know if that's because he has achieved an understanding where he's like, no, this has to be written down for whatever reason, like it's the only way it works, or if he's like, I'm the strongest, the rules don't apply to me. It's unclear. We just don't know because we don't know the nature of that particular artifact. It's only briefly been described. So the specifics of what qualifies as writing isn't 100% clear. But something to think about. You could definitely play with stuff like that as a GM and have a lot of fun with it.
I smell an adventure.
Absolutely. 100%.
I can't really
Uh,
think of many ways that people in this cult would do uh, inner inner circle mystery rituals because almost all of them involve degrading or moving yourself from the self. It's not a strengthening of ego, it's a loosening of ego.
yeah, this is very much the opposite. This is like this is very much like not in all cases, but in the vast majority of cases, it's the stoking of the ego. It's really interesting how they've turned like the narcissism that a lot of mages on Galarian experience into this really exploitable hack that they can use to make more necromancer servants. It's really cool.
I guess I could see them like lying to themselves or even having rituals of making falsehoods reality,
Hmm.
or just casting a bunch of capital R rituals
Hmm.
because it makes them feel more powerful, and that's just their inner workings of their. That's just the workings of their inner circle. And I want to point out a couple of things, terminology that we've been using. So, inner circle and outer circle are things that are relevant to today's Wiccan and pagan uh, organizations, but also to ancient cults. So, outer circle is people that outer circle is a presentation of anything that is from within the religious organization, philosophical organization, or cult that is visible to the outside world. It's the
Okay.
public view of the organization.
Okay.
And
Hmm.
the inner circle is everybody who has basically a pass to know all of the secrets of what's going on. But there can be concentric inner circles so that only like the top
Mm-hmm.
three know stuff. And then there's
Yeah.
people beyond that that don't know, like you talked about before, compartmentalize.
Yep. Yeah, that makes a ton of sense. And that's terminology that I had never heard used in that way before, but that very good visualization. That's really easy to follow. Um,
And also something that you said was actually no, we both said it. Mystery religion. The reason something is called a mystery religion or a mystery cult isn't because we don't know anything about them. It's because they practiced their own rituals or hand signals or information that they didn't tell anybody else. So they're
mhm.
called a mystery cult or a mystery religion because they had their own mysteries and we don't know anything about it.
Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And like you said earlier, this is definitely a mystery cult. Like very much so. These other religions, depending on the sect you're in, it might be a mystery cult. The Whispering Way is explicitly a mystery cult, and very
Interesting.
much deliberately so.
I
Um,
like that whispering part.
yeah, it's a really, really cool like moniker that they've given because you know that they came up with the term Whispering Way and then they came up with the backstory. It had to have. That's too cool of a name to have been deliberate. Um, but yeah, it was really cool. The only other thing I wanted to point out about these guys before we switch to the next slide is they actually do allow for religion within their ranks and like religious hierarchy within their ranks. Like you can have like some of those silos that I talked about earlier might include like this whole silo is a church dedicated to Urgathoa, or this other silo is a church dedicated to Zura, or Cabriri, the demon lord of ghouls, or um, in theory like Nhimbaloth, or some of these other undead deities. Like they could definitely incorporate that into as like a supplemental piece of information that you know. Like in theory, all of those religious practices related to undeath are valuable pieces of information to the cult, and therefore people at the top probably know a lot of them, even if they aren't personal religious practitioners. Like Tarbafon probably knows a huge majority of this of the secrets of the Urgathoan cults just by virtue of having been around for, several thousand years and the fact that he's the necromancer. He's the best of the best. So just
I like
just
that segmenting off of religion. I went to a Universal Life Church in Oregon that in their basement they had meetings for the Wiccans that wanted to be part of the ULC, but they had their own little group meeting in the basement. And then the Wiccans had their own little Nordic group that had their own meetings.
hey,
So you
there you
could
go. Now
like Russian dolls.
now having grown up small town Lutheran, I'm picturing church basement ladies brackets Wiccan, and it makes me very happy. All right, so now we're gonna move on. Let's get funny with it. All right. Now we're gonna this is the greatest art they've ever produced of Razmir. I
So
love it so.
dramatic.
This is the type of art that Razmir would have in his own church to himself. Um,
Yes.
so For the uninitiated, if you enjoyed our conversation about Xandergul, the god who pretended not to be a god, you're really gonna like this one because Razmir is kind of the opposite in the best way possible. This is a pseudo-religious cult. It is a cult masquerading as a religion. And why do I call it that? Well, its patron deity, big scare quotes there, is Razmir, the living god, the guy who totally took the test of the Starstone. Don't worry about the fact that there's no records and he didn't reveal himself until much later. Shut up. Uh,
I
so,
love the archetype. This is fun.
yes, the Razmir, is it, what's the official name? Is it Razmiran Priest?
Yes.
Yeah, the Razmiran Priest archetype is sick. It is so much better than the 1E version. I really, really like it. Um, yeah, so Razmir showed up in the River Kingdoms uh, not quite 100 years ago at this point, and he declared, "I am a living god." And the local lord came and said, "No, you're not. Stop being a heretic." And he killed the local lord with a fireball in a display of quote unquote divine power. And then the other guy, another local lord, a higher, more powerful one, showed up as like, "Dude, you just killed my guy." And then he turned that one into a fox. And then everyone was like, "Okay, you're a god. Fine, shut up. Leave us alone." Uh, And then Razmir proceeded to found an entire nation dedicated to his own religion. He's very good at collecting taxes and tithes. That seems to be the thing his church cares the most about, aside from
And
proselytizing.
manipulation.
Yeah, yeah, it's exactly. It's a religious donation. It's tax exempt. Um, Also, pay your taxes to me. Uh,
No, they're good at manipulation too.
oh, they're really good at that. Yeah, they've got this whole. I have it listed kind of down here at somewhere in the middle, the forceful indoctrination at the first step. So, if you want to become a priest of Razmir, you go to this place called the First Step, where a lot of recruits suspiciously die. It's very strange. And when you come out, your personality is shockingly different. It's very weird. After that, you wear a mask, and like the masks have different colors, almost like karate belts, but like way more sinister. And the robes have colors, and it corresponds to how much divine quote unquote power you're actually getting. Fun fact: all of these guys are arcane casters. It's really weird. Yeah, so but we're not really dancing around
With
the topic
divine
anymore.
power.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're not really dancing around the topic anymore. Razmir is a liar. He's not a god. He's just a really strong wizard.
Dude, do you know the skill feat? I can't remember. It's from Starfinder 2. I think it's from Starfinder 2. That allows you to use deception to give someone hit points when they're wounded. Maybe it's under medicine.
That's oh, I don't remember it, but that sounds like
It works
that
perfectly with this.
that would be perfect for this. So the way they used to do it is their healing spells would grant temporary hit points. I think now they grant real hit points. But it's
Really?
like I think they do. Maybe they don't. I'd have to go reread the archetype, but it used to be that it would grant temporary hit points that would then fade over time, which is why their miracles would disappear. Um, but yeah, it's really cool. It's also not clear how he's managed to do this. Like, did he find some artifact? Like, did he fail the test of the Starstone but inherited like some tiny little sliver of divinity? Like, what is Razmir doing to pull this off?
This is totally the faith healer in the middle of Kansas who is he healing people? Isn't he healing people? Who knows?
Exactly. This is those videos where you watch the guys, like do the chanting in the tongues, and then the guy in the wheelchair stands up, and then 2 days later he can't walk again because he didn't actually do anything. It's just adrenaline. Like, this is what these people do. They're good at it. Now they have real magic, but it's all arcane magic. They do have like obviously they probably employ oracles, they probably employ psychics, so it's not just arcane. It would be divine magic that doesn't come from a god, or it would be primal magic masquerading as divine magic, or it would be arcane magic masquerading as divine magic. Like it, especially after they got into 2E, there's a lot of ways you can fake divine power now. Like, if you're a bard, guess what? You're really charismatic and you can cast soothe. Like, you don't
And you can
need
also
cure or you don't need heal, you just need soothe.
really BS it in character. I cast
Mm.
primal spells, but you know what? Nature is really divine, so it's really divine magic.
Exactly, exactly. The other cool thing about these guys is while Razmir himself is evil and the vast majority of his priests are, The organization does not require you to be evil. In Spore War, there is a Razmiran priest who is a good person. Like he's a true believer. Uh, he definitely fell in real hard with these people, but he's not evil. He's a good dude. He's trying to do the best that he can in a bad world. It's just really interesting that like no, he still gets his powers. Like Razmir doesn't care. As long as he's collecting his taxes, it's fine. These guys
I
are
really like this cult. They're funny
they're
and they're
super funny.
totally relatable. They're very real life.
Yeah, like you all know people who like would probably get drawn into something like this or like a pyramid scheme or it would be really easy to play up whatever thing is going on in your state or your country or whatever where you could really like relate this to people you know or experiences you maybe personally have had. Like they're fun to put in your storyline. Super cool. Also, Razmir's a coward, which is really funny because he's a 19th level wizard and he's scared of everything. It doesn't help that in his defense, his neighbor is Tar-Baphon, so he has a lot to be scared of. They are
Yeah.
next door neighbors. Uh, he also, so rumor has it, someone, we don't know who, wink, wink, we don't officially know who, put out a hit on Tar-Baphon through the Red Mantis assassins. Now the Red Mantis were like, I don't think we can kill this guy. Also, he is a rightful monarch in the sense that he rules over like an island. He's a king. We can't kill him. That's against our rules. By the way, whole world, somebody just put out a hit on Tar-Baphon, and that somebody came from Razmiran and had the money to do this. We're not going to say who it was, but there's only one rich guy in that country.
Wow. I, I know that. Okay. Have you already gone through everything on this
I
the
mean,
slide? I
everything
don't
I need to
want
talk about, I've already said. So yeah, go off.
to. Okay. So, I really like that the Razmiran priest archetype and the Razmiran faith really blurs the line between
Mm-hmm.
what's mundane and what's divine.
Mm-hmm.
And like if you put on your mask and you give to somebody temporary hit points, I mean, they feel boosted, they
Mm-hmm.
feel protected, and they are in combat.
Mm-hmm.
And that protection lasts a really long time. So, how would that role play come off? Just, I had faith that I could protect you. Like, I don't picture the Razmiran priest being faithful to Razmir. I picture
Mm-hmm.
them being faithful to themselves
Mm-hmm.
because the religion is all about manipulation and lying and BSing your way to godhood. I
Mm-hmm.
can't imagine them honestly loving Razmir.
Hmm. There's definitely a split. So in recent publications, they've really gone down that route you're describing, where an increasing number of Razmir's supposed priests are very clearly outside of his control, and the only thing preventing him from confronting them directly is that it would make him look weak. Whereas if he doesn't do anything, maybe they're just acting in accordance with his will that the people can't understand because he's a god,
Oh my
you
God,
know?
that's totally true, though.
Yeah, whereas if he goes against them, even if he can crush them, these guys were still displaying all of the power.
This is a political cult.
It's awesome. It's so cool. But then you have the older publications, like all the 1E stuff. It's a lot of true believers. Like there's a ton of guys who truly 100% buy into all of this. And it both are compelling. They're
Yeah, I
both
think they
really,
both exist.
yeah. They for sure both exist. And the fact that they both exist is what makes it interesting. What I would love to do is play a party of Razmirans where like, no, I'm not a fighter. I'm a champion of Razmir who just happened to take feats from the Bastion archetype. Like, like how could you do like a cleric, like a cloistered cleric, a war priest, a paladin? Like, how could you play all of the traditional holy person classes? And as another class, like I'm a I'm totally this thing. Meanwhile, I'm a thaumaturge with special implements.
I
You
would
know.
love it if it were like a witch that took divine patron that keeps hiding their familiar because they
Mm-hmm.
want to show that they're a cleric.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it would be so much fun to play. Like if you got buy-in from the whole party, just like, nope. we're doing this kind of like evil-ish campaign where we all have to pretend to be clerics and we all have to pretend with each other. Like in character, we have to buy it. Like it would be
That is
awesome.
funny.
Yeah, you could do so much fun with these guys. And I mean, you could have a lot of fun and you could also go like real evil with them because like the people of Razmiran are incredibly poor because they live under this regime where the whole point is to pay your taxes to Razmir because they definitely play into getting into the more serious and sinister side of it. They have in recent publications really clarified that Razmir's teachings are very much aligned with modern US prosperity gospel teachings. The more you give, the more you shall
Oh,
receive. So it's despicable and exploitative and like you could really you could totally play it the fun way 100%, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You could also play it the oppressive and evil way, and it's really easy. So like
it really is.
it's really masterful writing that they've done with this character because you can take it in both extremes and you could have a ton of fun with it.
You could also like have a group of people who are high on charisma, because
100%.
remember deception is a big part of the archetype, and you could have them doing things like public outreach, sacred drama, showing people that this faith or another faith is good or negative, depending,
Hmm.
and they could get paid by the Church of Razmir for dissing other faiths or
Hmm.
for bolstering their faith.
Yeah, you briefly mentioned this between recordings, but what is sacred drama? Because that's not
Yeah,
a
I'm
term I'm
sorry.
particularly familiar with.
I didn't even say anything about that. So, all right. So, sacred drama is the term can be used two different ways. So, the first way that I don't mean is it is a reenactment of a myth on stage.
Mm-hmm.
But the way that I really like it, because it's fun, is when you are in an actual ritual, either inner circle or outer circle, so public or private, private or public.
Hmm.
Um, uh, really hyping up the energy
Mm.
with extra drama to your words,
Oh,
or
nice.
shouting or singing or big hand motions
Hmm.
or triggering fire effects at different
Hmm.
points or music swelling, something that really makes people move emotionally. That is
Mm-hmm.
sacred drama.
Gotcha. The guy at the role-playing table who's way too into his RP in the best way possible.
That's me.
Good. We need those people.
So, yes, that would be a lot of fun.
Yeah, these guys are absolutely the sacred drama type, or at least a subset of them absolutely are. You can like, I mean, look at this visage. If that's not a guy, look at this picture. If that's not a guy doing the sacred drama that ever was, like, I don't know what is. Um, you could easily play with that idea here for sure.
Yeah,
So.
he's clearly shouting a soliloquy to the setting sun.
Yes, 100%. Yeah, this is some dude practicing his these and his thous and his thines real hard.
Alas,
This
poor Yorick.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, he is speaking in iambic pentameter, a very well rehearsed speech.
Oh, I want to point out for those that are watching who might be offended by what I said, sacred drama, the purpose of it is to gather more energy for the purpose of the ritual or the religious experience, whatever that is.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And I mean that's a I mean I've attended evangelical services. That's just a thing that you do. That's not unheard of even in like traditional religions, Makes a ton of sense. All right. Now we're kind of climbing away from the objectively silly to these guys. All right, this is another pseudo-religious cult. So on Galarian, there are a lot of end of the world cults. I've talked about I've talked about a couple of them before. So like I'm just jumping ahead one. This, like we talked about at the very beginning, this is a cult to Grotus, the god of the end times. But there's other ones. There's Rovagug, the Great Destroyer, the what's his official name? The Rough Beast. He's the thing that will end all of the universe, and Grotus is the guy who will turn off the lights once everything else has been destroyed, and then he will fade, and a new universe will start over after he has left. But there's a lot of end times cults. One of them is the cult of the Ashen Man. So, this is a pseudo-religious cult because the Ashen Man is not a god. The Ashen Man is a thing. It's some mortal being outside of like kind of the normal understanding of like like demons and angels and stuff. It's this weird outer thing, and it likes to or doesn't like to. It will allow itself to be thought of as a deity so long as its mission, which is spreading fear of the end times, is passed along. So, minor spoiler alert here for the Curtain Call adventure path. Jump ahead until I skip the slide if you don't want to hear that. But basically, there is a cult devoted to the Ashen Man, even though he's not a deity, that their goal is to basically cause chaos and help in bringing about localized mini apocalypses, like bring about the end times for this city or this community. Um, and the whole point is like, no, this we are he is this manifestation of destruction. Now, in the case of the Curtain Call at AP specifically, it's interesting because these cultists are actually loyal to Asmodeus, the devil analog in Pathfinder, and they misinterpret the Ashen Man as this the this like destructive, vengeful manifestation of Asmodeus's anger at Kintargo and Ravenel, this region that rebelled against his rulership. And the Ashen Man was like, I mean, I could work with that. Sure, I'll be
I
your
have to say,
divine patron.
I have to say there are so many changes in our history that would have been different if humans didn't misunderstand a deity.
hmm Exactly right. Like, and that's why I included this because it's really interesting. Like, no, these people were just kind of like mentally unwell and they misinterpreted this other thing that they couldn't explain as an aspect of the deity that they knew. It's really interesting how they do that. And like the Ashen Man is kind of weird in the sense that like it's a really weird appeal to cultists because the type of people it appeals to, they need to like want to destroy the rules and regulations of society and just like ordered existence as a whole because that's what he wants to do. So like you have a very specific appeal here. There's like nihilism, but also a willingness to destroy. Um, and there's also the aspect of he's not actually a god in most situations. Like most people who follow him have misinterpreted what he wants them to do or who they think they're following. So there's definitely an element of like charismatic leadership on the part of whoever is kind of in charge of this cult to just kind of keep everything going, even though it's not all according to what it probably should be in the official teachings of whatever deity you think you're following. Like it's really interesting the level of I don't want to say delusion, but like manipulation that would need to be done either on the part of the Ashen Man himself or on the part of the cult leader to kind of make this all work in a world where, you know, if you worship Asmodeus, you should get spells. Like those are the rules. Like, why are we not getting spells from this thing? So it's this one's definitely the one that has the least written information about it, but I just thought it was interesting as a kind of thing to examine within the universe.
I think that it's like not really fleshed out enough to have a command over its own forces.
hmm
It doesn't, it seems like this is something that people would hold up or tout as the thing that they are supporting to
hmm
explain or to excuse anything.
hmm
Like we're burning down this orphanage. Why? Because he said to.
Yep. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, and that's exactly what happened in Curtain Call. Like these people wanted to destroy the new government in Ravenel and like the non-diabolic, and I mean that in terms of like actual devil worship, like
Devils.
as it's used in Pathfinder. Um, like they wanted to destroy this new non-Asmodean governing structure because it destroyed the thing that they knew. So they found this faith that they could use as basically an excuse, grafted it onto the belief structure that they already had and said, "Yep, we're good. Like it's fine. Let's forget that like Asmodeus is not really about senseless destruction and terror because like it's really inconvenient if we have to confront that fact. So let's just go cause chaos and burn things down.
Yeah. This is just like the anarchist symbol.
Yeah, it's really interesting how and it's also funny because the Ashen Man himself is like, that'll work. You know, like he does not care. He's like, no, you're making people afraid and you're causing destruction. I can work with that. You know, he does not care that they don't know who he is and they don't know how he works. They don't know what he wants. He's like, you're advancing my goal. It's this really interesting, like ruthless pragmatism that goes completely unexamined in Curtain Call because this is a red herring story. You are not supposed to look into this.
That
This
is
is the fake out
funny.
villain.
Fake out villain is a cult. That's funny.
It's really
I
and these guys, well, it's funny because they're almost like a double fake out villain because they actually, so you know how I talked earlier about how you could manipulate the Skinsaw cult into
Yeah,
like being your target, your assassination machine
yeah.
by just pointing them in the right direction. That's actually what the cult of Norgorber does with the cult of the Ashen Man. They need some people terrified and kidnapped. So they're like, "Hey, Ashen Man cultists, go do this. Like, there's some destruction you can do over there. Just bring that one specific person to us." And they're like, "Okay,
That's funny.
yeah, it's really cool."
Um, are you familiar with a Busengeist?
The Busengeist. No, that is not a thing I'm familiar with, and I'm assuming you didn't just make me say a dirty word in another language.
I, I hope so. Like I don't think so, but that'd be fun. No, it's a I so many things that I say harken back to Ravenloft. So that's a Ravenloft ghost.
Okay.
It shows up just crying, hair flying in a wind that is soon to follow. Wherever the Busengeist goes, cataclysmic destruction follows.
Nice.
So it's sort of like the Busengeist is like the symbol or avatar of this guy. Like
Yes.
they seem very similar.
Yes, that is very similar to his function in the world. Yeah, for sure. I've actually had to do some research on him recently that you are not far off from how he works.
I think this is totally useful from a GM perspective. I mean, because it's just about destruction, you could have this be a cult anywhere.
You totally could. And they could herald either either they could be the sign of a destruction that's coming anyway, or they could be bringing about that destruction. They're super
Right.
versatile as a
They could
tool.
be trying to and really sucking at it, but
Yep.
gosh darn it, they're trying.
Yep, exactly. Or they could be highly successful and it's effective either way as a story element.
Dude, I picture them being like idiot kobolds and just getting
Yes.
themselves deeper into stupid mix-ups because
Yep.
they're trying to bring about the apocalypse with like a cart of apples or something.
hmm Yeah, I'm very much taking it to the extreme, but I would make these guys like Arsonist Team Rocket. Like that's how I would make them work.
Oh my God, I hope all the posing would happen too.
Oh, 100%. Yes. We're good. We're taking this to levels of posing that hasn't been seen since the Ginyu Force.
What is that?
Oh, the Ginyu Force from Dragon Ball Z?
Oh, I don't know Dragon Ball Z.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no, it's just these guys who you know who Frieza is, right?
Vaguely.
Oh yeah, they worked for Frieza, the big villain of like the first arc of Dragon Ball, and they have this like they are jokingly based on a Super Sentai team from Japan, so like the Power Rangers.
Oh,
And
okay.
whenever they show up, they do this pose dance where they get into like this goofy pose together. So it's just funny. Like that's like the extremes to which I would play these guys up in a sillier campaign.
Why not?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I like this. I mean, this is okay. So, do you play Magic?
I play a little bit of Magic. I'm not good at Magic, but I have my mono red aggro deck that makes me very happy to play.
Red. Perfect. Goblins. You know goblins.
I know goblins, yes.
You know the Goblin Grenade card?
Yeah, I don't have it in my deck, but I've seen it. Yeah.
You know it though.
I know it. Yeah.
So the Goblin Grenade spawned a novel,
Of course
and
it did.
in this novel, the goblins are part of this orcish army, and they are just such idiots, happily charging forward with their explosives on their back.
I love
I
it.
picture them following the Ashen Man.
100%. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I could totally see that. There's a couple other ones that they could do that for too, but yes, the Ashen Man would totally accept them. He's like, "Yep, these are my people. I can work with this."
Boom.
100%. All right, so that was all I had for cults in Pathfinder. This is not an exhaustive list of cults. I have the cult of Grotus here. I didn't even talk about the cult of Grotus today. I didn't talk about the cult of Rovagug. Like, there are as many cults as there are evil deities, plus a bunch of other ones that are non-deific. And Pathfinder has like 1,000 deities. So, like, there's a bunch we could talk about. But like, I know you had a bunch of stuff you haven't had a chance to talk about yet. So, like,
I
let's
do,
let's
but I
keep it
also want to
going.
talk about this image.
Yeah.
Um, but we're at 9 minutes.
Tell you what, let's talk about the image and then let's jump into the other stuff on the next recording.
Sure. Okay, so this image of all of these guys around the circle,
Persons of unspecified gender with no hair.
that's sort of what I want to point out. This could be any cult, any group.
Hmm.
The Synanon organization, again, before they came anywhere close to being called cult, they shaved their heads uh as a sign of, well, a few different things. One, of sacrificing something to be to put forth this effort to have a new life, because
Hmm.
they started as a drug rehab center. And so they're like, okay, so we're all going to do this sort of self-punishment to see the growing of our hair back as a new life coming forth.
Oh yeah, that makes sense. Yeah.
And that's also done in some forms of paganism, including Corellianist Wicca. Uh,
I'm
of
I'm sorry, you're gonna need to run that phrase by me again. Corellianist Wicca?
Yeah, it's just a specific
Okay. All
branch
right.
of
Sorry. I
Wicca.
heard Corellian est Wicca, and I'm like, Star Wars Wicca? But all right, sorry. Corellia is a world in Star Wars. I was very confused for like half a
Oh
second.
no, Lewis High Corell, his
Oh,
last name.
that makes way more sense than what I was picturing in my head. Continue. Sorry to
Sorry.
derail. I'm not mocking. That's just what I heard.
Uh, so it's just in that branch of Wicca, and the high priest said that he got the practice from somewhere else, and I don't remember. I think he said ancient Celts, but I don't recall. I mean, this was years ago that he told me the source, or that he said the source publicly. But there is a practice in some branches of Wicca of trimming your hair or cutting your hair
Hmm.
as a means of magically separating your spirit from where your life has been into a new branch, into new reality. The idea is that as your hair grows, it also grows magical little filaments into the ether.
Oh,
And so you are severing literally your connection to where you have been magically.
okay.
And so I think that that is interesting to see that a cult shaves their head, or a group synanon does it for a rejuvenative purpose,
Hmm.
or for the purpose of cutting ties with the past. So whatever the reason, whether it be magical or mundane, just useful,
Hmm.
I see that as something that could easily be in any cult.
That's cool. I never even occurred to me to make that connection. That's a really interesting insight and not something I have any level of familiarity with. That's really cool.
Well, it sort of, some people instinctively try to make a huge change in their life when they're really upset about something. Like if
Hmm.
somebody gets
Hmm.
divorced, they're like, I got to do something to feel better. They like get a new haircut, or
Hmm.
a new hair dye, or they
Hmm.
shave off their head, or they just want to feel something that is dramatic, that helps them feel relief or release in that moment to
Yeah.
symbolize moving on.
Yeah, yeah, like this is the new me. That makes sense.
Right. When I got divorced, I shaved off my mustache and have kept it that way since.
That makes sense. Yeah. All right, so that wraps up about everything that I have for like prepared slides, including this image. But I know you had some things you wanted to talk about that were kind of uh not unrelated, related, but not related specifically to any one slide. I think you had something
Yeah,
about like the sacred chalice or something. I'm misremembering the phrasing, but
the great right.
Thank you, the Great Right.
So that is something that I imagine that there are a lot of TTRPG players that already know what I mean by the Great Right.
Hmm.
But I'll get to that in a moment. First, I want to mention a couple of ecstatic rituals that we didn't go over that you could include in Pathfinder 2 for any of these cults to do privately.
Hmm.
Um, so there are some examples of them that could be public, but it would just be dumbed down and not as intense. So the point
Hmm.
of ecstatic rituals is for the participants to reach a state of breaking from their reality, whatever that is. It could be a concept of who they are. It could be the stress of their workday. It could be their physicality of being a human being on this planet. But the point of it is to break them out of whatever they think their mold is to reach for a higher level of being, reach for a more spiritual side of themselves, and to rewrite beliefs that they no longer want to keep
Okay.
and to accept and learn new beliefs. So things like singing, drumming, dancing are all done to excess until the people that are practicing it are exhausted
Mm.
and also full of adrenaline. So like you're out of energy and you're full of adrenaline and your brain just shifts focus.
Hmm.
My father used to call it getting into the level. He would do it on command, and when he did it, it was to uh, basically do some like tricks. Like
Hmm.
he would, I don't know if this was because he could read people really well because he was a salesman for years, or because he
Okay.
actually had psychic powers. But he would ask someone for the name, age, and place of residence of anyone that they know, and he would describe them to them. And he called it getting into the level of passivity of just letting things come to him and talking about them. Other
Hmm.
people who have practiced remote viewing report the same thing. Getting into the level is letting basically the universe pass through you and you gain information that you then repeat. That's the
Mm.
state that people in rituals are trying to reach.
That's
And
interesting. And that would be really interesting to incorporate both into the religious, non-religious, and pseudo-religious cults. I find it especially interesting for like I would find that interesting in the context of the cult of Razmir, where it is very explicitly not divine and there is no divine message being passed along. It's like, okay, what are they actually talking to then? We know it's not Razmir. Like, what is sending especially in the context in the universe of Pathfinder, where the idea that something could be sending a message is really interesting.
and
Because there's
frightening.
and frightening, like, you know, regardless of how you view that sort of experience here on Earth, in the universe of Pathfinder, something could actually be speaking through them and sending a subconscious message. What is that thing? Because we know it's not Razmir.
It's the
Um,
psychic squid a mile that way.
I mean, there are psychic squid. It's a little more than a mile away, but they're in Ustalav. It's not far. Uh,
But yeah,
it
it
is
could also
literally
be
the country next door.
it could also be the subconscious of that practitioner.
Yeah, it absolutely could be. Like the universe of Pathfinder certainly allows for the supernatural explanation. There's also the entirely internal explanation of like, okay, it's the subconscious, but is that is that an esoteric thing, or is it truly just a weird chemical reaction in their brain? You could play with all of this as a GM and make it really interesting. You could use all of it for storytelling potential.
I agree. And also in our world, there is something studied called psychic enmeshment that psychics and probably thaumaturges and maybe other people, maybe people who practice occult magic would know about in Pathfinder 2. That's when people spend enough time together, their thought patterns overlap. And
Hmm.
so if one person thinks something, someone else in the same area probably did too. And they explain that in our world as why women's cycles sync up when they live in the same house for long enough.
Hmm. It's interesting.
Yeah, I like the idea of psychic enmeshment. It's that everyone shares a collective consciousness in a tight-knit group.
It's an interesting idea for certain, and certainly has a lot of storytelling potential. I would need to you know, I consider myself something of a skeptic. It's not something that I would necessarily engage with without reading a lot into it. Uh,
I'm not asking you to believe that. I just
no, no,
think
no.
it's
I know
fun.
that. I like that's an interesting idea and not something I've really considered, you know. But I could definitely see the strength of it as like a storytelling potential item, and yeah, very cool.
I have lived a very fringe life, sir.
Hmm.
Okay, so I also wanted to talk about one thing that I did not. I think I did mention actually suffocation as a ritual, an ecstatic ritual. And that is basically being suffocated until you pass out,
Hmm.
and then waking up as a new
Hmm.
person, having a
Hmm.
real life. It's sort of like being drowned and then being released so that you feel like a different person. These are rituals that are done today, but also have been done for thousands of years.
Hmm.
Wait, is it thousands? Yes. The last one that I remember hearing about recently was 300 BCE, so that's
Yeah, it's
thousands of
definitely
years.
thousands of years. Yep.
Uh,
That's in so weird pop culture thing that reminds me of is they use something George R. R. Martin uses something like that in Game of Thrones with the drowned god. I don't know if you're familiar with the books at all.
no.
But okay, so the Ironborn, which are the people from the Iron Isles, which is this
Yeah.
little set of islands off the coast. They worship a deity called the Drowned God, who drowned and came back to life after it was restored to new life, essentially rose again as a new thing. They practice something similar where they drown you and then they perform what they don't understand is CPR. They bring you back and you are considered to be reborn. They don't understand that that's what it is, but the priests are doing that. They put breath into your lungs and you know, do the heart compressions until you cough the water back out. Uh,
Great writing. That's
yeah, it's
great.
really good writing. Yeah. Yeah, really, really interesting. So, yeah, really cool to see that like uh, fantasy authors have already taken their interpretations of that, and it would be very easy to do versions of that here in Pathfinder for sure.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So then the last thing that I'll touch on, yeah, that is the last thing, is the Great Rite. So the Great Rite is something that is um odd. The Great Rite is something that's practiced in a wide variety of religions and spiritual practices and has been in one form or another again for thousands of years. It's the idea of the union of male and female, which has enough power to create life. It was an ancient concept of the power of gods to
Hmm.
create. And so it's often symbolically done by putting a knife blade into a chalice as part of the ending of a ritual.
Hmm.
It's also sometimes been done in the past and might still be currently done physically by two practitioners. So that the Great Rite, often when you mention it, people who are familiar with the term will go, "Ooh, it's naughty." It's not necessarily naughty. It's just a
Hmm.
point of um, bringing the likeness of spiritual creation
Hmm.
to the ritual.
Hmm.
And so the idea is just that we are divine, that
Hmm.
we are creators of life, that
Hmm.
we have the power here. We're calling it down into this chalice, into this ritual space to give us the energy of the gods.
Hmm.
And it's used in a lot of different spaces, but it's always, well, not always, it's most easily called the Great Rite. It's also practiced in Wicca commonly.
Hmm. So
That's all.
the mention of the phrase chalice and blades brought me back to young teenage Philip read, and I'm sure there's somebody out there who's going to be horrified because I'm sure this book butchered the idea of this. But this automatically brings me back to when I read the Da Vinci Code because
Yes.
yes, very
Yes.
clearly playing on the same idea. Now, I haven't done any research to see if Dan Brown did anything even remotely accurate to like the real world history and lore of that thing, but he's clearly playing with that kind of symbology. Um,
I know he did take real world history and he used the pagan symbology pretty accurately.
Okay, cool. That's just not something I could speak to. So that's good to hear that he did that. That's kind of cool because that was to me, I mean, that's the strongest element of that book is the incorporation of the pagan symbology and like the exploration of it. It's really fascinating stuff. The the place I think you could do something like that in Pathfinder, that would be a really interesting idea because if the phrases that I'm remembering from that book in relation to this are like the sacred masculine and the sacred feminine. The way that I'm kind of connecting that and kind of the blade and chalice and like the life-giving imagery is are you at all familiar with the Pathfinder deity Erastil? The stag
Yeah,
lord. Yeah, like the
yeah,
god
and
of like
farming too,
hearth and
right?
home and hunting and family. So he has a divine wife called Jaidi, who is a goddess of agriculture, and she's very much a lesser deity. She was really popular in the time of ancient Aslan, but she's kind of faded in popularity now. She's still powerful. She's still, you know, very strong, but she's just not widely worshipped anymore, outside of her capacity as Erastil's wife. But what could be interesting would be to incorporate this into kind of like this and kind of the related practices of Wicca to inspire like this kind of like sacred ritual for like a cult of Erastil in like this small harvesting town, kind of celebrating his union with his wife Jaidi. I think you could really easily kind of there's fertile ground, no pun intended, for something there, you know, that you could do for kind of like
Sure.
a folk ritual, you know. It's a cult, but it's not a cult in the it doesn't carry with it any of that negative association that the word cult so oftenly does, or so often does.
Yeah.
But
I
yeah.
think in Pathfinder 2, I would see it as practitioners of a primal tradition path trying to bring arcane magic, or no, sorry, arcane practitioners trying to bring primal magic into their circle
I
because
could
it's
see
sort of
that.
trying to use nature as their
hmm
energy.
Yeah, arcane or even occult
Yeah.
practitioners within the universe. Yeah, I could see that for sure.
And you can do that with any opposites, really.
hmm
Like Rose and Thorn are often used interchangeably with Chalice and Blade.
See, now I'm picturing combining that with the goddess Milani, goddess of rebellion. Like because her symbol is a rose and thorn.
Oh,
It's a thorned rose sprouting from a bloody street. Like you could easily incorporate that into like this is the life of the rebellion now. Like that's that you could really do something fun with that.
I think you have a brain like Dan Brown did. I think you could work those together.
Yes, except my weird nerd obsession is way more niche and specific and useless.
It's not useless. It brings joy,
Useful
relief,
to an
hope, and
extremely
fun.
small group of people.
Yes, but extremely useful to that group.
Hopefully, that's the goal.
I think that's all I had to add. We already talked about most of the ecstatic rituals. I just want to point out that each of these cults and each religion would have their own outer circle or
hmm
public face and the rituals or celebrations that they would do to say, hey, we're good guys.
hmm
Even if it's having like a bake sale, the
hmm
simplest of all outreaches.
Yeah, and that's the cool thing is like there's so much fertile ground here for just having fun with it as a GM and just kind of making it up on the spot. Like if you put some thought into it and you come up with an idea that you really like, there's absolutely a cult in Pathfinder that would use a something similar to what you've conjured up in your head very easily. You can find it, you could put it in the world and it's gonna work.
What cult would Bloodloaf fit in?
Would what fit in?
Bloodloaf.
What's blood? I don't
Oh,
know what
don't
blood.
tell me you don't know what Bloodloaf is.
Now I'm picturing Meatloaf's heavy metal cousin. What am I talking about?
All right, it's a loaf of bread
Yep.
with uh, uh blood baked inside it
hmm
uh to ward off evil spirits.
Mm.
It's
Okay.
it was a common way of being able to make bread
hmm
because blood is 1 for 1 in exchange for eggs, the
Oh,
protein
interesting.
and water. So in ancient times they would just use blood, like half blood, to bake bread. but it also came to mean a way of warding off evil.
Hmm. That's interesting. I don't have a good one off the top of my head. So like I
Oh,
could
come
see
on. It's
well, no, hang on,
Bloodloaf.
hang on. So I could see any number of Pharasma's Psychopomp ushers for sure. So a twist on it would be not to ward off evil spirits, but to call them might be the cult of Urgathoa. I could see the
Okay.
cult of Zura doing it, the vampire lord. I could see her cultists doing it if they could somehow transmute the bread that way into something they could eat. That might be kind of interesting.
That's cool. Yeah, let vampires enjoy food again.
Yeah, that could be interesting. I don't know that Pharasma would necessarily do it, but there's definitely a Psychopomp Usher, like one of her servitors, that you could do that for. 100%.
I am totally tempted to make blood loaf now. How do I get beef blood? Where do you get that? I don't know. I have to look it up. Random.
All right. Well, I think that has been a discussion on cults. Dare I say exhaustive.
Yeah, I mean, don't think there's a lot more that we could talk about how cults would work or you could use them,
Mhm.
except talking about really specific cults. And like you said, there's dozens more.
Yeah, we could, I mean, we could go on for hours about all the cults in Pathfinder. It would not be hard. There's the Demon Lord cult, there's the Archdevil cults, there's yada 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 yada. The Archdevil ones are just kind of fun because in you could do them in Cheliax where they are just an aspect of the state religion, which is kind of cool. Because Cheliax is it's the Diabolist state, which is cool. It's a good setting. But we'll
Yeah.
we'll be exploring that as Pathfinder players later in 2026 with the two Cheliax APs that are coming out. So I'm sure we'll have conversations about that much later.
It is always fun talking with you and fun doing these breakdowns on a variety of topics. And for everybody watching, there's going to be more coming.
For sure.
These have been quite a pleasure to do with you, Phil. I'm glad we have.
Yeah, I'm glad we have this. It's a good nerd outlet for me to just talk about all this stuff with somebody who maybe doesn't know it all, but definitely cares. So that's awesome.
Oh, yeah, I
Uh,
definitely care. And I'm glad that I can share my personal life experiences in any way that helps anyone,
yeah.
because it doesn't really help me anymore.
No, it's great. I think this back and forth is helpful. It adds color to the setting, it adds color to the conversation. So thank you, Jake. Appreciate the conversation. We will do more of these in the future. I want to talk like we talked about before the recording. I want to do the traditions of magic. I want to do the green faith. Let's make it happen.
I agree. Pause. I forgot I had questions.
Oh yeah, you've got Q&A.
Do you have time? It's
I got a
time
little
for
bit of
you.
time. Yeah.
Okay. Then I okay, so I already sent them to you. I'm going to
Yeah, I
go
read
through at
through
least
most of them.
oh good. I'm going to go through at least the first three because they're brief.
Hmm.
So these were I posed the opportunity for people on my Discord to give me topics or ideas that they wanted me to touch on or cover during this collab because I was going to do it later today. Uh, Later the same day, I should say. So Vanessa from my Discord said
Hi,
she
Vanessa.
was what?
I said hi, Vanessa.
Hi, Vanessa. Uh, she mentioned cults as devotional groups for a specific god and a polytheistic religion versus cults as colloquially used. That was hard to say. Colloquially. I think we covered that at the very beginning.
Yeah, yep.
So
Pathfinder uses the term kind of broadly. We've got your kind of polytheistic focused cults, and then we have your kind of by degrees, as you get away from worship of specific deities, you get closer to that kind of pop culture definition of cult that we see today.
yes, then let us move on to the next question, which is Morguline. This is a question for you, Phil.
Oh boy.
If the evil power your cult is trying to please demands a human sacrifice, and you critically fail on the murder, are you allowed a hero point to get another stab at it?
Oh boy. I would call it a villain point, but um I also like the little another stab at it pun. Very well written. Uh, I mean, yeah, if you've saved the hero point just for this, you can use it. Like, go for it, man. If that's how you want to spend your hero point, that's what it's for. But I
Green
am
light on
officially
that.
GM fiating it to be a villain point.
All right, More, you got a green light on that? We just have to change the name of it a bit.
Easily done.
Uh, Edge. All I know is that cults in real life are a way to avoid taxes and do weird things. So any clarification in regard to them would be appreciated.
I don't know that that's a question. However, I can say with a degree of certainty that the vast majority of these cults do not pay their taxes, with the possible
Yeah,
exception of the Church of Razmir, because if they don't pay their taxes, they're not doing their job.
that's a good point. He's
hmm
all about the money. Um,
Also, if you count the prophecies of Calistrate as a cult, they would also pay their taxes.
that's a good
A-
point.
And if you had a religious cult dedicated to Abadar, and you were not paying your taxes, I think the rest of the Abadarians would consider you a heretic and would probably kill you.
That's a good point. I agree
Mm.
with that.
So, so
So
most of them
in
don't, but certain ones of them absolutely do.
so in real life Edge, just to give a brief synopsis, because this could take days,
Hmm.
um, people usually don't go into a cult thinking it's a cult. People don't usually start a cult thinking, I want to be a cult leader. Usually, there are people who are vulnerable and somebody who wants or needs something. And the person who wants or needs something has a strong personality and is really good at manipulation. And the people who are vulnerable are approached at just the right time with just the right words to use them. That's the basics. All right. So this is all right. Okay. So you can talk about this first one, but really the second part is a question for you. So I'm going to voice this first part, but it's really just a perspective that I want voiced. So the person that asked is I'm trying, which is a great screen name.
hmm
Not a question so much as a general prompt. I find it fascinating how many followers modern Wicca or those who seek wow. I find it fascinating how many followers of modern Wicca or those who seek spiritual enlightenment through things like crystals are supportive of other beliefs. Conversely, some followers of mainstream religions have a history of persecuting followers of other belief systems, even when such persecution is contrary to the doctrine of their own religion. We often hear of cultists creating false dichotomies that trap followers. One of the things that separates recognized religions from cults is their ability to persist when followers choose other paths. Take Christianity. No one teaches hate in Sunday school, but some of the communities created from Christian belief make fertile ground in which cult-like hate can thrive. I'm going to read a counterpoint to this that is absolutely accurate. By Crystal Caves Mystic. I've seen more hate happen within some of the pagan communities too. If someone dares say they are more conservative, then the larger Wiccan or whatever pagan religion fly off the handle at them just for not being super liberal. Unfortunately, it's not as supportive as others believe as many might think. I've seen a lot of hate out there, left a lot of groups that go off like that. I am very sorry and sad for both of your experiences. And the lesson to draw from this is people are dicks everywhere.
It's very true. And I do have a minor counterpoint. Like you said, nobody's teaching hate in Sunday school. That is absolutely not true. It is absolutely being taught in Sunday school. Now, I was very lucky. I was raised Minnesota nice Lutheran. But I absolutely know of congregations where that is, hate is taught in Sunday school. It's disguised, but it very much is taught. Now, it is interesting the difference between cult and religion because there are definitely a lot of parallels. I mean, there's a lot of, as someone who grew up evangelical and is still a member of the uh, by definition, the ELCA, Evangelical Lutheran Church in America, it doesn't really fit with the definition of like evangelical as we use it in pop culture. It's not really the same thing. Um, like there are absolutely like delineations within Christianity that I consider to be a cult in the popular definition of the term. Like
A
in the
destructive cult.
yeah, it's very much a destructive cult, like what we've been describing. Um, but yeah, it's definitely like there's that gray area, It's like there's some of it is definitely like the air of legitimacy defines what is and is not a cult in some facet, you know. It's it's an uncomfortable conversation to have with a lot of people because the line can be uncomfortably gray for some people, you know, especially people who've never had to think of it in that way before. So it's it's interesting. And unfortunately for a lot of people, it's just going to be a very personal thing of like, was that a cult? Was it a religion? Am I in a cult? Am I in a religion? Sometimes it's very clear, but other times it's going to be that very personal kind of hard conversation. Sometimes you just have to have with yourself.
And hate, hypocrisy, and prejudice can be anywhere in anyone, in any
Absolutely.
organization.
100%. Every religion on earth has it. Every philosophy on earth is vulnerable to it. It is those are things that cross denominational lines.
My religion, which is a rule on the server, is don't be a dick.
That's a very good rule. Yep.
So there was a question by I'm Trying. In game, what are some ways those with self-serving anathemas or shadowcasters, typically seen as motivated by evil, can join a heroic party and become heroes? I'm not really
Uh
sure how this relates to cults.
I mean, there's definitely ways you could do it. So, like, if you worship a deity that is generally considered evil, you can absolutely join a heroic party. The trick is just to align your evil to their goal. If you, I'm not kidding. If the heroes are a bunch of goody two shoes and they need to break into somewhere, they're gonna hire, or they should at least consider hiring a priest of Norgorber. As long as they're not really, as long as they're not like worshiping a deity that strictly forbids you from using evil in order to do good, like in Iomide or a Torag, like you're a worshiper of Caden Kalian, you could probably, he personally doesn't like Norgorber, but I don't think he's going to care if you hire a Norgorberite to pick a lock for you. It's convenient. You know, if you have a follower of the Reaper of Reputation in your party and you can trust them to stick to the good of the party because it's profitable, that's not necessarily a bad thing. You know, there are e- all depending on the threat you're facing, it might even make sense. Like if you have cultists of Rovagug, guess what? All the deities except Lamashtu are going to fight Rovagug. All of their followers are going to fight the cultists. There are certain threats. If you've ever read the web novel Worm, there are certain things that I call Endbringer level threats. The Endbringers are these giant monsters that can doom the entire planet, and all the heroes and all the villains team up to fight them because that's the only way they can be stopped. There are certain threats in the Pathfinder universe that are Endbringer level threats, and Rovagug is one of them. You know, it's very easy to just create to take another parlance, an Avengers level threat that absolutely requires everybody on board. So that's the way I would do it. Otherwise, make it some kind of deeply personal thing that will prevent them from fighting the needs of the party in most situations. There you go.
And friendships of convenience are okay.
It's totally okay, especially in adventures as opposed to adventure paths. If you're just running an adventure, you can make that work so much easier.
Oh, yeah, totally.
They only need to be friends for 2 weeks.
Or an hour in game.
Exactly.
Uh, I have another one here, but we're just about out of time. Um,
Quick version. Let's do it.
okay, quick version. If This is by Robert.
Hi,
If
Robert.
I'm or if someone I know is trying to start a cult, would it be better to have the ideology and mythos fully fleshed out before starting to recruit, or would overall loyalty be stronger if that mythos is actively developed and established in witness of a few starting core followers? I can answer that because I've seen it. The way to incorporate the most people is to make it up as you go. Find out what they believe and say that's part of your belief system.
hmm That is a good way to do it from what little knowledge I have. In Pathfinder, you do have the challenge of the gods are a little bit more mechanically present than they are here on Earth, in the sense that they can make you cast fireballs. So you do
What?
have to come up with a mechanical workaround that you can take advantage of. Uh, but once you figure that out, then I refer you back to Jake's advice.
Also, Robert, don't do it.
Yes, unless you're in Pathfinder, then go nuts.
Yeah, great. All right, that will be us wrapping up. I appreciate all of you being here, and again, I'm just grateful to have these talks with you, Phil, and you guys will be seeing more of this coming up, God's willing.
Yes, very much so. Dragons are next. Then after that, we'll see what happens.